Here we go. Will it connect in time? Let's see. Right, so I'm setting up at the minute, so bear with me while this finishes setting up. Apparently we are now live. So welcome. Where's the camera? Here's the camera. Right, welcome to the stream. I am going to be once again looking at other artists talk about art, just so I have something to watch. Due to the fact that my channel is still small and growing, I'm not guaranteed an audience at this stage. The last few streams, luckily, I've had a few people stop by, which always helps. You know, a bit of feedback can bounce off a few ideas, but if not, then I'm here just to amuse myself. And if I have any comments about what I'm about to watch, and if it makes sense, then perhaps I can provide some extra value in the aftermath. So yeah, to start with, we have a video. It's going to be about posting art online, the struggles and that kind of thing, which I always find quite interesting, just to see what other people are up to. So let's get stuck into it. Let's go full screen. And do we have captions, hopefully?
Hi, hello Flu Drawers, how's it going? I think most artists nowadays have a complicated relationship with the internet and everything going on online, because it can truly be a blessing and a curse. On one hand, yes, it gives us a platform to show and sell our art and get feedback and build a community. That's sweet. We don't have to sell our art on the streets anymore, that's a win. But on the other hand, you can't just draw anymore. That won't cut it. You have to not only make art, but make content. And that is what I wanted to talk about today. Today I wanted to just rant about the current reality of posting art online, the trends and toxic behaviors that I don't really like seeing, and how to find balance and grow without going insane. It's not fully...
Yeah, so this is the position I'm in at the moment. So people have been asking me, when was it, how much time do you get to draw and how much time do you get to like content, how much time do you get to do other things? So because I work part-time as an artist, like I'm not doing this full-time, so I'm basically having to do other things in order to basically make a living. So it's not ideal, the situation's not perfect, but doing what I can. And the big part about making art for me seems to be the biggest section of the pie chart seems to be making content, trying to make something that people are going to actually engage with and get them into the whole art thing. Because I think these days, especially because of AI and increased competition, pretty pictures, beautiful art, that's a dime a dozen. So even getting to a point where you can create awesome artwork, I mean, that's hard enough in of itself, but once you get there, if you can't get eyeballs on it, you might as well just not exist. So you're going to need to put content out there. So I'm sure I'm going to be relating to the struggles in this video.
A rant. I do have a little script and the specific points I want to talk about. I did not come unprepared. I'll be playing some speed paints in the background for you to look at, so make some tea, draw along, eat along, and let's get into it. Being an artist nowadays, you have to be online. You have to be a content creator and put yourself and your art out there in attempts for people to see it, so you can maybe get attention and start making a living off your art. And while, yes, the algorithms are not very gracious, so to speak, I think it's still a relatively small price to pay for having your dream career, is it not? All I need to do is post my art, make short-form content, and stay consistent with my online presence. I mean, I can't give any promises, but sign me up. That sounds like a sweet deal. At least that's how I personally motivate myself to stay semi-consistent with posting. I tell myself that this is literally a hilariously small price to pay for how convenient and enjoyable this job is for me. So I am in no way complaining about any of this or comparing it to any real life struggles. Absolutely not. I am very lucky to be able to do this. And by the way, I suck at posting. I am so bad at it. I can be posting every day and then disappear and not post anything for like a month. And the algorithm hates me for it. Well, rightfully so. If I didn't show up to work for a month on a regular job, I don't think anyone would have let me back in. after that. But what's actually frustrating, in my opinion, is not the amount of content that you have to make, but also the type of content the algorithms want you to make. Because, when I post a 30-second speed paint of a drawing that took me 20 hours, I know it's not gonna go viral. I just post it for my portfolio, for my audience to enjoy and see my process, and also to have proof for people who say my art is AI. Can't say that when I post speed paints for every drawing. I know a speed paint, no matter how great and skilled your art is not gonna go viral. It's not gonna reach hundreds of thousands of people. Although, yeah, that would be nice if we didn't have to invent anything every time and just post a speed paint and get consistently high views. That would be so sweet. I mean, it can happen. Once in a blue moon, a speed paint can take off. But it's so rare, I don't really count on that, Because fairly, platforms
I
don't.
will say as well, just to add, there's this whole thing about, it's a small price to pay, posting up on social media and stuff like that. I mean, that is a small price as long as you're also having success out of it. And I could imagine that there's the majority, I'd say, of artists that are aspiring to become full-time professionals. I mean, I work part-time, sort of semi-professionally, I guess you could say. Um, and when you're not there, when you're not making a full-time living out of it, the act of not only pumping out artwork, but then having to go to social media and then potentially even failing at that, it's like a double whammy at that point. It's all good so long as it works. If it, and I guess you can tolerate it, if you're in a position where you're having success. And obviously, very talented artist here in front of us. So, she deserves all the success that she's getting, I would imagine. But yeah, that is just something to keep in mind. It is difficult, I think, for most people that aren't really killing it, and they're still trying to get to that point where their artwork is good enough to demand attention, and their social media posts are getting attention as well.
Don't care about spreading your beautiful art for people to see. They don't care about that. All they care about is engagement. And you might be thinking, but if people like my art and leave nice comments in support, doesn't that count as engagement? Doesn't the algorithm see that people find my art enjoyable? So maybe if it pushed my art to more people, they would also find it enjoyable and everyone would be happy. And while yes, that is engagement and the algorithm loves engagement, there's something it loves even more than engagement, and that is negative engagement. Oh, it loves that. It thrives off of people being negative in the comments and arguing and judging and bullying each other, because negative reactions are always stronger. They're always louder. Don't make art fun and enjoyable. Make it political. Make it controversial. Make people hyperanalyze, critique, hate your art. Add to the drama. Fuel the fire that will tear apart the art community. That's why so much.
Yeah, I think it's a funny thing because I remember, it used to just be the domain of tabloid newspapers where it would be sort of clickbait headlines on a newspaper thing. And then the internet obviously came along and people started blogging and things like that. And then people realized that if you apply the same tactics that newspapers do to internet blogs, then you can get more attention. People start to read, they are more invested for some reason, for whatever reason. And I guess now that's permeating the art sphere. So now artists are feeling like, oh, okay, I've got to go create some artwork. Now I've got to go create content, to promote that artwork. But in order to promote the content, I need the clickbaity headlines and the negative trends and stuff. And yeah, we're so desperate for attention, and it's like, well, that's a surefire way to get it. And it's hard to not do that, because for some people it might be the difference between basically putting food on the table and not. And it can be very difficult if you're not someone who likes drama and you don't really have any strong takes, or you don't really want to upset anyone, but you feel like, oh, I'm going to have to engage in all this kind of political stuff or controversial stuff just to basically, I'm going to have to take a side just so that I can kind of get people on board. So I think that's the trouble. So many people are somewhat sort of tribal in nature, and they want to know if you're part of their tribe or not. Do you support the same sets of beliefs that they do? Yes or no? And if they do, they'll give you attention and see what you're up to, and if not, then they'll go to the next person. So it can be quite a difficult game for artists these days.
Much content I see now go viral is either rage bait or drama. I've seen people pretending to hate on someone else's art style or character design, saying like, oh, I hate this style, but the style they're showing is actually their own style, but the people online obviously don't know that, so they start hating and saying, how dare you, I
That's
have
weird.
this style and I like it and you're stupid. Or the one I've seen recently was like, cringe OC designs be like, and people in the comments going berserk again, like, how dare you? What's wrong with my character having a traumatic childhood? And horns of a demon.
Cringy OCs be like, so yeah, I'm a demon, a wolf cat thingy, a princess. I got bullied. My hair is made out of fairy dust. Is a nerd. My eyes glow in the dark. And I have this 12-inch scar across my face from getting bullied and stuff. My family abuses me. And my mom's the only one that cared about me, and so she gave me this necklace before she died. I wear pretty clothing, because I'm a princess, of course. I put on a fake smile, because I am depressed.
I'll see if I can find examples, because I wasn't saving any of those. Maybe I won't find the exact videos, but I will find something in a similar
Is this just like a
vein.
kids thing? Like, do people over the age of 20 still engage in all this kind of weird, obvious clickbait and obvious to try and get attention? Because I mean, me being someone who's a bit older, I kind of feel like some of this stuff's just weird. I mean, it's almost fair enough if you're criticizing someone's art style. I mean, I do that. There's certain styles I hate, and I just think, why the hell is this popular? Why the hell has this become, for example, mainstream? Not just art, but it could be like user interfaces and stuff. When you look at something like software, operating systems, things like that, you think, okay, I used to like the way, for example, Windows Vista looked. I liked that aesthetic that was out. When was that? It was probably like 2008 or something like that. It was about that sort of time. And I quite liked the 2008 aesthetic. And then everything kind of went very kind of 2D, single color, single tone, flat, hyper minimal. Once Windows, for example, got to like Windows 10, Windows 11, everything went into this sort of tiles kind of look. I'm just talking about Microsoft Windows. I could talk about Google or Apple products, but just to give an example. And I think it's fair enough to say stuff like that. And but when it comes to artwork, like, I kind of get it a little bit more because you don't want to personally attack people's style. And there's a few styles in particular which I don't like, which I think are probably the most popular art styles. So I don't feel comfortable at this juncture saying exactly what they are. But yeah, there's stuff I don't like, and maybe it's fair enough just not saying it online, especially just to try to be controversial just to get attention, because it seems a bit petty and a bit cheap, really. But yeah, I mean, I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings, but yeah, I've definitely got certain opinions on things which, perhaps at some point I will share, because everyone's doing their own thing. I wouldn't even expect people to like what I'm doing. I think people would look at my art and say, I hate that style. The weird thing is when people literally do come up to me and say to me, like a comic book convention, I'm selling my artwork, people come up to me and they'll say, yeah, I really hate what you're doing. I hate the way that you're drawing your characters or whatever. I'm like, oh, okay, thanks. That was and thanks for the feedback. And I'm just like, why are you being like that towards me? Yeah, some people are weird, but anyway.
Also, I've seen people pretending to be bad at art to get negative criticism. They'll purposely make an ugly drawing or show their very old drawing and be like, oh, how did I do? And people would be like, oh my god, this is so ugly, never pick up a pencil again, go yourself. Or sometimes people are not pretending, they're actually a beginner just posting their art, and they have the audacity to say that they like their art and think it looks good. How dare they, right? No, it doesn't. We all see it. It looks like crap because they can't draw. And every commenter under that video feels the need to make a joke about how bad the art actually is and how silly they are for thinking it looks good. And it's sad, it's just so sad to see. Because I remember when I was a beginner, I also loved my art. I thought my sketchbook scribbles looked so cool. I really did. And my friends and family always supported me and told me how great I was and how cool my drawings were. If they told me that my art sucked and I should never pick up a pencil, that would crush me. That would break my heart. How can you say that to someone who's just having fun and enjoying what they do and happily sharing their work with you? Man, because
Yeah, it's a weird thing, isn't it? The internet definitely gives you a harsh lesson in life if you're not good enough, and because no one gets to see if you're just 10 years old, 30 years old, or no one gets to even, you don't get a little bit of intro on any piece that you post online to say, oh, just letting you know I've only been practicing for 3 months, or just letting you know I've been practicing for years, but because I've had some health injury, I can't hold a pencil properly, and that's why the lines are shaky. You don't get any of that. All you get is the final result. Is it good? Is it bad? And the world will just judge you. Doesn't matter, what gender you are, what age you are, what your circumstances are in life. You are going to be negatively judged. Okay, we have comments. Reaper put, let's go. Let's go indeed. I know a lot of artists who recommend bad publicity. It's better than no publicity. Be shocking. Yeah. Do I agree with it? I can't. There's this moral part of me, this sort of core value that just says don't be mean to people. Be a nice guy. And typically in marketing, with marketing advice, you have people that say, be selfish, get what you want. No one's going to give you a chance, so you've got to go out and get it, and you've got to take what's yours, and no more Mr. Nice Guy type of thing. And I've heard that a lot in recent videos, and people say, "Oh, you're nice." That means you're boring. That's code for being a boring person. And I'm just like, no, it just means you're not an arsehole. It just means you're considerate towards other people. And if everyone was like that, the entire world would be a better place. And it sounds a bit, airy fairy, la di da, utopian, but I don't know. I feel like everyone should make an effort to be nice to each other and not pollute the internet with just brain rot and shit and criticism and turn the internet into a dumpster fire, because that it might be funny for a bit. You get a few cheap kicks and a few cheap comments out of it, a few laughs, whatever, but ultimately I don't think it's good for humanity for things to be like that. But that's one side of me. That's like the left side of my brain. The right side of my brain says, no, just say what you want. It's the internet. That's how it is. Just that's to be expected. Like, if you're going to start posting things in the public sphere, be prepared to get shot down, because people are like that. People don't hold punches, and people might be nice, but even if you've got good intentions, in my experience, 10% of commenters on social media content, especially if you get a lot of commenters, like if you get 1,000 comments, you're going to get, well, would you get 100 negative ones? Maybe not even 100. Maybe maybe about 50 that are a bit shitty out of 1,000 comments. And yeah, you're just going to get that. I mean, when you look at like people in general, like there's this idea that I think, is it like 4 or 5% of the world are actually psychopaths? I don't know what the exact percentage is, but it's more than 0 point something percent, that's for sure. And then you've got these other like dark psychological traits like Machiavellianism, sort of people being manipulative and getting a kick out of that, or being sadistic and getting a kick out of that. Narcissism, people basically being in love with themselves. There's all these dark traits, and the internet just opens up to all those types of people, and you never, there's no there's no policing. You don't have to. No one's going to punch you in the face if you're acting like a prick, basically. So it tends to bring out the worst in people, I think. Okay. Phil Chandelier Arts. Wow, how rude. Sorry, I'm only getting to that comment. Whatever I said, I do apologise if I was being rude. Um, I didn't mean to offend, that's for sure. It is, unfortunately. It's an illusion to believe that people have self-awareness in this world, acting like this works. Yeah. I have had that a couple of times when people used to do caricatures. Yeah. I think it's common no matter what type of artwork you do, you end up getting the same kind of comments at some point. Like, it doesn't matter if you're a caricaturist or a fine artist, you're going to have to deal with a lot of the same issues, artistically or otherwise. Yeah, it's complicated. Right now, I don't know what it's best to do. Ignore or shatter other people's dreams. The reality is the art market is one of the most hostile and unforgiving places in the world. Yeah, and that is something that I agree with. I actually think that to some degree, artists are probably the bravest, most courageous people, or the profession of being an artist is in some ways, because every time an artist or a craftsperson, same with writers and musicians, creatives in general, could be said the same with like actors, but you literally put a little bit of your something into you put a bit of yourself into the work, into the product that you're producing, and it's not like you're trying to just sell microwaves or I don't know what people would sell, pizzas or something. Like, you don't care about that, especially if you're not working for someone else. You are actually invested in the product. So yeah, it can be very difficult when you're posting it up and people's first reaction is, right, let's just shoot this down, let's criticize it, let's find, even though maybe 90% of this image is quite good, or this work of art is pretty good, there's one little thing, and I'm going to tear you a new arsehole over this one thing. I'm not going to let up on it. And I think there's an argument to say that tough love can be quite helpful at times, but at the same time, it depends on your disposition, I think. Anyway, cracking on with the video.
Thing is, you can't really see your own art for what it is. You have this filter that does not allow you to see that, and you only get to see how it actually looks when you improve. And from that higher level, you can tell, oh yeah, that's wrong. That's normal. You should be positive about your art at any level. You should enjoy it. That is the only way you can keep improving. People are so weird. You can have a thought of, oh, I don't think their art looks good, I don't really like it. That's okay. But you don't have to say that to their face. You can be walking down the street and see someone in a weird, ugly dress and think to yourself, huh, that's a weird, ugly dress. You can form that opinion, yeah, but you don't come up to a stranger on the street to tell them you hate their dress. That would be a crazy move. Honestly, I'm so happy that when I was a beginner, no form of TikTok was around and I got to keep all of my ugly sketches offline. If I were
That's
a beginner now, I think I'd be...
specifically talking about TikTok here. And I've noticed it specifically in the TikTok comment section, more so than any other social media platform. There's just something about it, obviously, because it is catering for more of a younger demographic. And I think a lot of kids, if you want to call them kids, people that are just doing that kind of stuff. It's like, here's a little video. I'm here for the comment section, especially if there's something which looks a little bit controversial. I mean, the amount of comments that you'll see where it's like, I came straight to the comment section, or, grabs the popcorn, waiting to see what the comments, are like on this video, because, it's going to be controversy, people are going to be critical, even if it's just, like a fat person doing a dance, you go to the comment section, people are going to be mean and rude, and the trouble is, maybe some of the comments are even going to be funny, but at the same time, it depends, doesn't it, whether you should be leaving those kind of things or not. I personally wouldn't. I think sometimes it can just be a bit mean. But Yeah, exactly. TikTok is quite toxic no matter what is posted. Yeah, well, they call TikTok the platform of brain rot for a reason. I mean, I don't actually think it's bad. Like it is like there's a lot of stuff on TikTok which I think is entertaining, but the comment section, yeah, I've never known anything like it for like negativity wise because obviously, like there just doesn't seem to be much moderation there. I mean, maybe there is, but yeah, people can be pretty nasty, and you start to lose faith in humanity after a few too many post readings of stuff. And like I say, there's certain things I wouldn't take it personally. Uh, I don't really care if someone wants to call me out and say you're an ugly man. It's like, oh, okay, sorry about that. Whatever. But to someone else, they're gonna, say to some poor girl that's got a bit of a complex over the way she looks. If you say that to her, she's just going to be devastated. And I don't know. I don't know. That's just maybe I'm just a bit weird like that. I wouldn't necessarily go down that route, but
So scared of posting my art online because it seems like such a hostile environment. There's so much pressure, so much competition, so much judgment. But honestly, it doesn't matter what you do and what you draw. People will have their good and bad opinions, so who cares? I think in the end, it is what you make it to be. You have to stop being afraid of failing if you want to win. Yes, there is always a chance to get hate, but there is also a high chance of finding like-minded people who will want to genuinely support you. And I think it's worth taking a risk. Don't you let anyone discourage you.
that's fair enough. So yeah, worst comments you've ever had about your social media posts. What would you say? I think for me, I had people basically just say, "I hope you fail." What you've been doing, especially when I put out some message that's a bit more honest and heartfelt. And I say, I'm trying to do this thing, and I'm struggling, but I'm going to persevere. I'm going to hopefully get there anyway. And then the response is just like, "I hope you fail." It's pretty full on, but yeah, comment section is a bunch of people lying around in their underwear, often drunk or high, saying something random and toxic, and within 5 minutes, the person has already forgotten about it. Yeah, that's very true. I think that's worth remembering as well. Like for people that engage in it, it can be quite difficult when you're posting a TikTok post or whatever it is online, and you're only posting like one or two a day. Maybe you're posting with intent, like you're trying to get attention on your, in my case, it'd be artwork or whatever it is you're doing. You're trying to put something positive or something good into the world, something original, something with some sort of meaning, or at least it has value to you, and you hope it will have value to others. And then you kind of get a bit forgetful that you're posting into the wild west, and you just don't know what you're really going to get back. And for you, you're just for, well, yeah, it was a nice piece of artwork. I was proud of it. I wanted to share it. But to them, well, now it's an opportunity to basically, tear you apart. So yeah, I've heard a lot of you hate AI because you know that bad AI work is better than all the crap you create. Yeah, there is that. Thing is, to be honest, the way AI is going, I wouldn't be surprised if AI does beat the majority of artists, if it hasn't have done or if it hasn't done already. Obviously, it's not created by artists, it's created by AI prompters. It's not quite the same thing, and it's just an algorithm that's basically ripping off artists that have gone before to recreate something in the same vein. Um, but yeah, it's pretty shitty when you sort of get that comment saying that, oh, you're only criticizing AI just because it's better than your thing. Maybe it is better than their thing, but still doesn't mean you don't get to criticize the fact that basically Silicon Valley tech bros have come along, invented a technology that has basically or is systematically putting every creative writer, musician, artist out of business overnight, and people are losing their jobs, their livelihoods, and I think people have a lot of reason to be quite bitter about the state of AI and quite angry about it. So Phil says, my worst comments weren't even about my artwork, but directed to me personally, just insults to get a rise out of me. So how did you handle that? Like, did you react to it? Because the thing is, when people insult me or my artwork or whatever online, I know rationally that I shouldn't worry about it, and it's just people being trolls. It's just, they're just trying to get a kick out of it. Like you say, they're trying to get a rise out of it. And if you do rise to it, sometimes they're like, aha, okay, I've achieved my goal. My goal was to, get a comeback or engage someone with a sort of back and forth online. I try not to do too much back and forth because it never leads to anything productive, does it really? Sometimes you can win a bit of an argument, but so what? But yeah, it still affects you personally, even if rationally, I think you know that it's just some idiot that is jealous or bored or, like you say, drunk or um, a bit high or whatever. Just they don't really think about it. Um, So yeah, those comments, Phil says those kind of comments, I just delete and block the commenter, or I won't respond to them. Yeah, I think that's good advice. Um, I think some people are inclined to seek out justice, and they feel like if they've been unfairly treated online, if someone's come along and said things to this person who isn't true, that they feel like they've got to battle it out online. But I mean, if you get a kick out of it, maybe, but I don't think that's probably the way to go, really. I think it's just going to waste your time when you could otherwise be doing something
To
productive.
me, it is often hard to stay in the right mindset with managing my social media, but in order to not go insane over posting, I try to treat every post as just another beautiful addition to my library. It doesn't matter if it performs good or bad, it doesn't matter how many likes or views it gets, I'm just growing my library, my cute little portfolio. So if the next post or the post after that gets attention, then the people who come to my profile from that post will have a bunch of cool stuff to look at, and they'll be so excited to go through all this stuff on my page. So who cares? Just keep going, build your little art gallery, and eventually it will get seen. And regarding short form content specifically, I try not to treat it seriously at all and not get
I think that's good advice to just treat everything you post as just something that you're adding to the library, and you're not necessarily going to have a hit with every single social media post. But I think the trouble with social media and the reason why it does affect some people, especially those that are trying to, for example, turn their art into a career, is that the social media kind of matters, as you said at the beginning, and as I've said before, like you need to create content because you need to then have something to get eyeballs on what you're doing so that they follow your art or notice you in the first place. And it can be difficult when you're in a position where it's like, right, okay, I need to ramp this to the next level. I even need to start trying to sell my artwork or trying to sell more of my artwork or try to sustain a living. If you're not in that position yet, it can be quite difficult to be like, oh, okay, well, no one liked this, so I'll just carry on posting. And how many months or years or decades would you do that until you get to a point where it's like, oh, this kind of matters to me now. Um, doesn't mean you have to lose sleep over it, but it's worth perhaps looking at the metrics and thinking, well, is there something maybe I could tweak based on the likes, the views? I've always said it's not about validation. It's just about trying to gauge where a potential audience is at. What people kind of are resonating with. But yeah, just my 2 cents on that one.
too attached to it. I treat it like food for algorithm, quantity over quality. Because when you are expected to be posting nearly every single day, there's no way you're going to be pouring your heart and soul into every single post. That's just not realistic. Yes, I will be pouring my heart and soul into my drawings, into my long form videos, yes, but short form content is not going to be getting as much passion from me. I will not be spending hours trying to craft the perfect reel with perfect editing and transitions. Please. I just have to come up with another semi-creative way to showcase my drawing. The drawing that I do feel very passionate about. It's just the making of the reel and scrolling, looking for new trends to do and audios to use. And even if sometimes you do put a little more effort into a reel, It never pays off. What pays off is the dumbest, low effort thing that you made in 2 minutes that sometimes does not even involve your art at all. Oh, yeah, I've been there. That is what will be fueling your art account for months. So,
It's a weird phenomena, isn't it? Have you had this before where you do put some effort into creating something which you think is gonna, or you think at least warrants, and then in addition you create some just low effort stuff, and it's the low effort stuff that people seem to resonate with. Uh, it just doesn't compute in the brain, does it? You sort of think, well, more effort surely means more reward, but when the low effort stuff's getting rewarded, you start to scratch your head and think, have I just misunderstood life? It's a weird thing. So yeah, Phil, I found it to be very true. And put, I hate all of this so much. This situation is making me envious of the gatekeeper days. Yeah, it's it's a hard time, isn't it now? So I take it. Well, Phil Chandler Arts, you're definitely. I would imagine that are you professional, semi-professional? You said mentioned doing caricatures. Are you doing paid work? Reaper put. I can't remember who said about this, but yeah, it's definitely difficult when you're trying to make it pro. I think thing is, if art is just a hobby to you, you don't have to worry about any of this stuff. You don't even have to worry about social media. You can just enjoy doing all of this stuff, you know, when you get home from school or work, and just keep it as a hobby. And that is probably the best place for it to be. But if you don't like your 9 to 5 day job, or you know you need money, and you think, well, I'd rather be drawing and making money at the same time, then I think a lot of people end up wanting to go into the whole art career thing. So
a big piece of advice from me would be include yourself in your art. We are all people, and people love people. We love when things feel human and relatable and have character. You and your art come as a package. You don't have to show your face necessarily, although that is definitely gonna help with humanizing your art account. You can make an animated Sona for yourself instead, or you can include yourself in other ways through humor and making jokes and giving your personal thoughts and stories and sharing a piece of yourself along with sharing your art. I don't know, I think it depends on the type of audience you want to attract and the type of online presence you want to have. If you're
I actually think that's probably the most relevant good bit of advice that you sort of would hear on art advice videos, which is to sort of yourself into the whole social media thing. Because when it comes to marketing of anything, you know, people don't just buy products, you know, they'll buy the brand. And if the brand is associated with a person, you know, they're going to buy the person. And it's the one thing as well that you can have that no one else can have. So if people know that the artwork is specifically coming from you, or you're doing something which is kind of tied into the actual artwork itself, and you can't easily detach it from you, then you know you've cornered the market. You know, no one else can come along and be you and do you unless in the future they create some kind of cloning technology to make another version of you. But for now, at least, we're all good. So I feel like definitely that's a good advice worth thinking about. So Vic McBread, good to see you. One artist spent 10 years of his life mastering art. He was never awarded or noticed. There's a comic about about it in 18 pages. You can draw anything and no one cares. Wow, is that someone is do they have any social media account or anything? Or is that like a story about someone that you mentioned? Yeah, I think that's ideally the best way to be. Like if you have the money side of things taken care of, then if you can just do it and master it because you love it, then like you never have to get any. I mean, it's a weird thing, isn't it? Like you don't need any external validation or an audience in that situation, which I would imagine could make you very content if you just don't want it. But at the same time, it kind of seems like a bit of a crime not to share your mastery with the outside world. What do you think? But it's a weird thing as well. It's like, just to ask the question, would you create art if no one ever got to see it? Like, or if you knew that, I don't know, an asteroid was hurtling towards the planet, and in 6 months' time, we'd all be dead. Would you still continue creating artwork, or would you think, if there's no sort of ongoing legacy from this thing, or if I'm never going to reach the levels I want, would I still continue it? It's an interesting sort of thing to think about. So Phil says he's semi-professional, I guess. That's like me as well. I think I'm semi-professional. Like, I can make money out of my artwork, but I don't rely solely on it, which I suppose is possibly the same situation. I used to work in animation. I do commissions now and trying to start up with YouTube. Well, yeah, I think that's the thing, as we are told. Put yourself out there. If you can get your face out there, or your voice out there, or something of you to sort of connected to your art, I think that would definitely, or hopefully, yeah, it should definitely pay dividends. To what extent, who knows? But yeah, it will definitely be better than not doing it. Selling art is not selling art. It's not showing talent. It is you learning to sell yourself. You are the product. People buy what you do, not because it's good, but because they love you. Yeah, I think that's mostly true. Well, I think there are different type of artists, aren't there? There are there's the holy shit artists, the ones where you look at their artwork and your automatic reaction is to say to yourself, holy shit, that is good. And those sort of artists, you don't ever need to know anything about them. Talking about this whole thing with mastery. Yeah, if you are that good, that's it. People would just think you're amazing. But most of us aren't going to get there. Most of us aren't going to just lock ourselves away in a room for 10 years to perfect our art. And even if we did do that, there's no guarantees that we have the innate talent to be that good. But let's just say we did. Few people are going to be at that kind of upper echelon. I think most artists are aspiring professional artists. They still have some ways to go. So Vic McBread, his name is Moat or Mark Chong. Okay, I might have to remember that. I'll try to anyway. Yeah, some people though, like, you look at their artwork and it's like they are like, it's holy shit, they are so good. And sometimes it like, even though I think many of us are on a sort of mission to promote ourselves and sustain our own art careers, you sometimes come across artists who are just so good, and I almost feel bad for them that they're not more successful, because I feel like, I see people who, what you would consider 8 out of 10, say, level with their artwork, and they have careers in their artwork, and so they should. That's a good level to be at. If you're in the top 20% of all professional artists, you deserve to be making money. But then you see those people that are just so phenomenal and they just don't have the recognition they deserve. It seems criminal sometimes. Art is the only work where we feel obligated to have purpose and contact with the divine. I think first we need to pay our bills. What's the point of being perfect, or the perfect artist monk if you're starving? Yeah, exactly. It's like the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We need to fulfill those lower level needs of survival, and then we can start tapping into that enlightened state at the very top of the pyramid. But at the same time, I think, like you say, artists are expected to go straight to that, and some do. And I think a lot of artists kind of do to some degree, because you've got something inside you which makes you want to uh, kind of actualize the ideas or the preferences or whatever in your mind, and bring something which, at least to you and hopefully to everyone, is meaningful. Uh, yeah, I suppose the dream is to do both, to be rewarded handsomely for doing something which is, very meaningful to you and to other people.
Posting your art to find a full-time job, like if you're posting professional character concept sheets on like ArtStation, then yeah, I don't think you really need to show your personality and be authentic to attract potential employers. They don't really care about that. They just want to see your portfolio. But if your goal is not to work at a studio and you want to be an independent artist and maybe open your online shop or do commissions and build your own little brand and get a dedicated audience, then you can't just be posting your art like a robot. You have to be actively present in your art account so people see that, oh, there actually is a person behind this. That is very valuable, especially nowadays with all the bots and AI accounts. Actually, in the past, I used to be very against that idea of putting myself out there, because my boyfriend has been telling me, hey, like, I think you should include yourself more, because your personality is a big part of your art and people will gravitate more towards your art if they know the person behind it. And at the time, I was posting drawings with literally 2-word captions, just like girl with a sword. And it's a drawing of a girl with a sword. How engaging is that? So now I totally understand where he was coming from. But at the time, I really resisted that idea. And I insisted I wanted to be known for my art only. I did not even want people to know what I look like. I wanted to be incognito. I don't fully know why I had that mindset. Maybe I was also like self-conscious at the time. I don't know. But later I noticed that I myself gravitate more towards artists with a face. I've been watching a lot of Audubon Out and Jaden animations, and I had no idea what they looked like in real life for a very long time. But then I saw them in the video or like an interview for the first time, and that was mind-blowing to me. And I became even more of a fan because I got to see them outside of their animated sonas, and
I wonder as well if you see some people, and like you're used to just seeing their artwork or whatever, or maybe hearing their voice, and then you see them for real, and instead of finding them more alluring and the whole art thing sort of more engaging, it actually turns you off. It's like meeting your celebrity crush or whatever, or someone who you look up to. It's never as good as the sort of fantasy in your mind of who they are. But perhaps it doesn't matter either way. Either way, I think she's got some good advice here. I think so many artists are the sort of inward, introspective, introverted sort of type generally. Not always. I might be wrong. Let me know if I am. But people like that generally don't want to be at the front of the, front facing in front of a camera. I think they tend to want to be behind the camera, if anything. And you could kind of I feel like you could kind of get away with that back in, I don't know, like in the 90s, the early 2000s. And then it got to about 2010 to 2015. And from that point onwards, the game got harder, and it got to the point where I think if you're not putting a bit more of yourself out there, it just makes the whole game even that much more difficult to play. So I think we're sort of all forced into it. But yeah, it definitely is about selling yourself, I think. And yeah, Reva put, all those legendary artists from the 19th century, they were all companies. Most of them create the same unique style of art for what? To make money. Yeah, I mean, a lot of artists as well back in the day, like you got good at it and you kind of created, I guess, effectively a brand, like a company brand that was you. And then you would just hire assistants to basically paint the artwork forever. And then you would just sit back and rake in the majority of the money, become quite wealthy, and then you just pay your assistants, somewhat of an income. And they were happy to do it. They were happy to at least have something to do with art, back in the oldie times. So And some of those assistants would then go on to like establish their own art businesses later. So it wasn't all bad. It was, in some way a good introduction to sort of get in with a company, which I suppose is like a lot of game animation kind of companies now. People will work in animation for a bit or work within the film industry or the game industry. Get used to finding out what it's like to work in a company without having to think about the business aspect of it. And you get to sort of level up your skills while being paid for it. And then maybe after 5-10 years, you sort of think, I'd rather just be doing my own thing rather than having to draw someone else's thing. And then, you hopefully your skills at that point are at a point where you believe that there's something there that you can make some money from it, and then it's just the business side of things. Um, but I'm super into history, philosophy, and spirituality of art. But really, I can only think about this aspect: how to make a living from art. Everything else is secondary. So, are you trying to actively make a living from your art? Is that your goal? Um, because I feel like that's now becoming the key concern for most artists now, and I think that's why I'm paying so much attention to listening to what other people say about the art scene. I mean, this is more specifically about social media ish. It's not specifically how to make money as an artist, but still, that even in that, like the points she's touching on are still that kind of thing. How do we gain popularity? And obviously, the popularity is in service of becoming professional, I guess. I mean, for some people, it's just about a hobby and getting more attention, getting your work seen. But you know,
They turned out to be such cool, nice people. And then I discovered Sam Does Arts, and he really stood out to me at the time because he was different from other art YouTubers I watched who either only showed their art or had animated characters representing them. And he was actually present in every video. It was not just about his art or the art education he provided, like tutorials and stuff, but about himself as an artist. He was like an art friend, an art buddy. And I'm not saying that that is better or worse than faceless artists. It was just a different dynamic that I really liked. So yes, I think it's cool when an artist is not only being an artist, but also being a person, especially as we become more and more distant and the loneliness epidemic is growing and everything is AI, so you don't even know whether you're interacting with a real person online anymore. And I think it's important to remember that other artists online are also people who have feelings. Some are literal children who are just learning to draw, so be kinder. You don't have to compliment someone's art and actively support them if you don't want to. That's fine. But don't go out of your way to upset or bully someone, especially when they didn't do anything. Yeah, I feel like I got off track towards the end here. I don't know. But hopefully this was an okay background video to listen to or draw along. And I hope you have a great stress-free day. And good night, good day, goodbye.
oh, there you have it. I thought it was a good video. It's funny how there's just so much overlap with so many different artists from so many different backgrounds saying the same thing. Once you've watched enough of these videos, you kind of hear the same messages repeating over and over. So yeah, Reaper put yes because I'm broke. I have a lot of praise and $0. Yeah, that's the thing. If only we got a buck every time someone said something nice about our artwork, we could all retire and be sipping margaritas in the Bahamas, couldn't we? But yes, it's the status of the issue. Yeah, I think this is the trouble. It's like in an ideal world, you want to just focus on the artwork, but yeah, we're kind of forced into the whole money side of things. It's hard not to, and I hate it because it, like naturally, like people have an aversion to people that are thinking about money all the time, and there's all these sort of phrases like, "Oh, money doesn't buy you happiness. Money won't buy you friends. Money won't, lead to whatever." But and that's all good and well, especially to say when you're kind of secure in your situation. Um, if you got $100 coming in the bank every year, you're like, yeah, I can pay all my rent. I could even buy a house or start saving to buy a house. I can pay for, my transport, my food costs. I could even, live with a partner. I could pay for them. I could afford to pay for a family. Life is expensive, but there's a certain threshold where once you get to that, you're it's fairly easy. And they say, as far as sort of life happiness goes, I think last time I heard it was it about $100 or $120. There's a certain monetary threshold whereby if you earn that much per year, then that after that point, so let's just say you make $200,000 a year or $1 million a year, there's a massive diminish on returns for your how much you earn. But up until that point, a lot of happiness can be gained every $10,000 that you're getting inside your bank account and stuff. So yeah, good vibes. Oh 07. I don't know what that means, but thanks for joining. And then things are never as easy as they sound. Very true. Never truer words were spoken. It seems so easy because you can write out a step-by-step guide of what to do. There was a video I watched the other day actually that was basically telling you, how to be successful as an artist, that kind of thing, how to get rich, make money. And there are a few points where the presenter of the video was saying things like, well, one key element is making sure that you have a good story. The story is going to, help to sell your artwork. And then they moved on to the next point, and then the next point, the next point. And I'm sort of thinking in my mind, whoa, wait a minute. Story? What do you mean story? If this story thing is so important, what exactly do you mean by I need to get my story straight, or I need to have a good story to tell? I mean, I think you need you need to create a narrative surrounding the art, not just each individual piece of art. Like if you can say, oh, I'm a Mexican artist that had some relatives die when I was young, and then I got really inspired by like Day of the Dead artwork and sugar skulls and things like that, and now that's the sort of thing that I draw. You've got that kind of backstory to it which can kind of resonate and have some kind of meaning, and people kind of get you and your motives. So I think that's what they meant. But yeah, they didn't explain it. They just made it all sound easy. It was a 10 bullet point plan to success, but without breaking it down. If you've never heard the term of or the idea of having a story, then it can be quite confusing and a lot more complicated than it sounds. But yeah, I was impressed with some of her artwork as well, because I mean, you don't get to see the reference, but I thought she did a good job of drawing a sort of dynamic looking badger without seemingly any reference. I wouldn't know how to draw a badger, but I'm sure she's seen one before. Okay, moving on to the next one.
Hello.
Into this guy in a sec. Yeah, I just wonder of eating proteins. And then Phil says, yeah, I've heard that a lot. Telling a story. I'm actually looking into experimenting with that on my own channel. Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Like, I feel like I would probably be better served considering my backstory as well. Like the normal story that I tell people, I do have a little bit of a backstory, but I feel it's a bit weak. So the idea is I always wanted to draw the sorts of things that I enjoyed as a kid, things from comic books, video games, cartoons, anime, stuff like that. The trouble was I couldn't draw. I barely knew how to hold a pencil. So I basically went away, practiced, and finally got to a point where I could draw. And in that story, I might talk about how, I did my first ever commission, and I was so like elated to finally have someone willing to pay me like $50 for a CD cover. And then I went away. I worked on this artwork that I thought was amazing. It's my first uh, big time chance to make it to the big leagues. Sent it to the client, and then the client basically hated it. They said it was no good, and it crushed me. But then I dug deep, and I sort of found the resilience within. It's a bit of a cheesy narrative arc, but yeah, I dug deep, found the resilience to go back, make the artwork better, sent it to the client a second time. The client loved it, and from that point on, I knew I wanted to be an artist. But that's all good and well, but it doesn't really go into the depths of what I'm doing. So if I'm drawing fan art from an anime, I feel like I don't. I normally just I'm not unlike this girl said in the last video. I just put it out there and say guy from anime, and I don't necessarily say how that anime made me feel, the story in it, the characters, why I connected to it. I don't say, oh, actually, the main character, the one I've drawn, actually has a few traits which I can kind of relate to. For example, their personality is a bit like this, which is unusual for a main character, but I could connect with that. And I feel like stuff like that would probably be a lot more beneficial. And I just don't do it. I don't know why I don't. I think I've got into the habit of not feeling like I should or need to do that when actually I do. So yeah, I don't want my story to be I saved money during my 20s. Yeah, well, that was like me as well. Like there was a lot of sacrifices I made when I was younger, where people would go on, like trips away or go out drinking a lot with their friends, and you know do own expensive cars and all that kind of thing. And for me, I was always trying to save money because I always had this dream that one day I would just save and save and save until I've got so much money that I can just you know basically live off of that forever effectively. But then life kind of got in the way, and like actual real world things sort of prevented that from happening. But I suppose that in of itself sounds a bit boring, doesn't it? So, how did you spend your life? Well, I was very sensible and I saved some money. It's probably not as compelling as people would expect. Good vibes. There are so many artists out there that are far better than most professionals, but they will never get recognised because being afraid of the leap in today's economy. Yeah, I think that's always been the case, though. There are like what Vic McBread was saying about the artist that just went away for 10 years, became a master, and never really did anything with it. There's so many people out there that are talented, not just in art, but you think of singers. Like you can see these, mainstream talent shows, the Got Talent type of uh, shows, and you think, wow, there's so many talented people, but the only people that will win a Britain's Got Talent, America's Got Talent, India's Got Talent, whatever. There's only going to be one winner, and how many of those people are still successful? How many of those do you still know to this day? Like the only person I can really think of or group was the British group. Was it One Direction it was One Direction. There was a singer from it called Harry Styles, which became really popular, even outside of the UK. Became quite popular in the US and abroad. So people know Harry Styles from this One Direction band, but what about the rest of them? Like, do we hear about them now? And they're the winners. So yeah, it's just worth being realistic about these things. Not to advocate quitting or giving up because you're working against the odds. But I think just having that kind of realistic take helps you be more prepared for what's to come in the future. And what's your posture? Your posture today? What work model would make you happier? 99.9% of these people are gone. Yeah, that is the trouble. So, I mean, it, I think it's got to the point where long gone are the days where I would envision what I would actually like. Because people say, where do you see yourself in a year's time or 5 years' time? What would you like to do? And you have these dreams, or I had those dreams I guess, in my early 20s. I'm now in my early 40s. It was actually my birthday last week. 43, can you believe? Um, so the idea of kind of feeling as though I wanted to be in a place where everything was idyllic and perfect, that ship has kind of sailed a bit for me. So now it's more damage limitation. And I guess in an ideal world for me personally, I would like to be someone who can sustain a career through selling my own creative products and just make a modest living doing that. I think that would be a good and reasonable goal to have. So that's where I'm at. I also think that people underestimate the luck that comes with persistence. That's a good point. Yeah, luck. You have so many amazing artists, or like I say, equally applies to writers and musicians. You can walk past a subway or a street and you see some musician, singing away, busking for a few bits of change or whatever, and they might be amazing, and they'll never maybe bump into the music producer who ends up chatting to them and giving them a music contract because that music producer only walks past that
Again.
day.
I thought I would make a
And then
video.
I'll come back to you. And then if only he happened to be there on the Wednesday, or perhaps another busker, another musician will be there on that Wednesday who's good, but that music producer happens to walk by on that day and says, "Oh, you know what? I'll give you a shot. Come by to the studio and we'll, record some tracks together." I don't know. I don't know how that sort of thing works, but congrats. Thanks very much. Happy birthday. Yeah, it's crazy. Crazy when you reach that kind of age. It's like, how the hell did that happen? How the hell did I end up becoming a middle-aged man? It's like it felt like 2 or 3 years ago I was like a kid in school. I can still have weird dreams of being a kid in school, even though I'm an adult. And I kind of feel like this is weird. I don't think I should be here. Do you have any weird dreams like that? Maybe it's just me. Wow, well, you look great for 43. Thank you very much. I wouldn't have guessed. Belated happy birthday. Thank you very much. Yeah. I don't know what the secret is. Be an unemployed, starving artist for a long time, and it keeps the years off. Apparently, no. I don't know what it is. Just genetics. Hey man, life's never perfect. Never too late for anything. The industry is just built to stress people out. Totally. Yeah, I think it probably wasn't meant to be that way, but it's just inadvertently kind of become that way. There's just so many moving parts and factors for that. I wouldn't necessarily say I've kind of given up on the dreams, but I think my blueprint has just been changed. The kind of this idea of having a blueprint of how you want your life to be, and I think it's good to aim high, but then it gets to the point where if your life isn't aligning with the blueprint often enough, then perhaps it's a good idea to scribble parts of it out and make sort of modest changes here and there. And then yeah, my friend, we're living in dark times. Do you think that now it is worse than previous times? I actually watched a documentary earlier today. It was about the comic book publisher or the comic book 2000 AD. I don't know if anyone's a comic book fan. I never read 2008 AD. It was a British comic anthology. I mean, I never read it, but anyway, this documentary started with the fact that the whole 2000 AD comic series came off the back of uh, hard times during the 1970s in England. That a lot of people felt like, they were feeling dispossessed. They couldn't afford things, homes. There was, rioting in the streets due to mismanagement of the government, and times apparently were tough back then. And I wasn't born then, so I'm not sure exactly, but uh, throughout my life, specifically since 1982, when I was born, it feels like times are at least tougher than they have been previously. But this might just be me. You know, next week I could win the lottery or something, and I wouldn't be saying that. So yeah, most I've talked about say that it feels like it's just accelerated since mid 2010s. I feel that too. It's like we entered the wrong dimension after 2016. Yeah, it is, isn't it? Like that's so weird. It's like 2010 happened, and then it's like things don't seem to be getting better. But okay, let's see how this goes. And then it got to 2015. Then it's like, yeah, things definitely aren't getting better, are they? Just across the board. Um, and I think it then hits the artist types more. It's bad enough if you're a plumber or an electrician or a hairdresser or something, because you know times are tough. The cost of living, all that kind of stuff. It's hitting everybody, but particularly if you're in a more vulnerable industry, it just adds that extra kind of layer of difficulty on top, I think. Um, I think artists should have a very clear, concise plan. We need to think like entrepreneurs. Yeah, I think so. I think that's kind of what this is all about. This is why we're sort of watching other videos talk about art things. You watch enough of these, and hopefully there's enough overlap to get a general consensus of the state of play and where things are at. I mean, you watch a video in isolation, and you never know whether that's just some random opinion. I think in order to kind of think a bit more critically, you need a bit more of a broader brushstroke, and to sort of find other people talking about the same sort of things but coming from a different angle, to see where the common ground and the overlap is, to get a sort of an understanding of the playing field. And once you get that, I think that's a better sort of stage to then move ahead from. But never let things break you. I can see that most people, for instance, are actually anti-AI, which I'm happy about. Yeah, that was a surprise, wasn't it? Because I feel like in 2023, at first, there was a blip where people were just being blown away by things like Mid-Journey or ChatGPT. And then maybe by 2024, certainly the end of 2024, there started to be a bit of a, well, for me, I felt like there started to be a bit, like people were thinking about it a bit more and starting to be like, well, wait a minute, what is this actually doing to society? Like, is this actually a good thing? Like, it's all good and well, being blown away by like the latest trend or whatever. But when you can sort of see that this technology perhaps is having a negative impact on people in certain ways, you start to feel like, are we entering sort of some weird cyberpunk dystopia now that was all good and well when it was like a fun fiction or science fiction, but now that it's manifesting into something tangible and real, perhaps it's not quite so fun now, unless you're some kind of rich corpo that can deal with it. Um, but yeah, you're right. You don't want to let it break you. I think I naturally have a more negative. Okay, so yeah, I wonder where the AI thing is going to go. I wonder whether people are just going to completely retaliate and just say, no, I'm done with this AI stuff now. Interesting. Interesting to see just how much backlash could build up over the years. It's weird because you see these like sci-fi movies. Like there's one I think called The Creator, which was like a sort of, it was on the side of the AI, and it sort of turns out that the humans. Oh, actually, I'm going to do plot twist spoiler if anyone wanted to watch the creator. But yeah, it's basically saying that yeah, AIs AIs aren't all that bad. But yeah, I get the feeling that there could be some backlash against that. So I've been studying history for over 20 years. There've been infinitely worse times. If people knew, they would be traumatized. Oh, no doubt. Yeah, I'm fascinated by it. I don't really read a lot of history, but I kind of like the dark histories. I think more when you sort of learn the sort of horrific truths of just half the country being completely decimated by some other rival country, and you sort of put yourself in that scenario and think, oh yeah, times must have been pretty bad then when you literally thought, is today the day that the baddies come over the hill and kill us. Uh, the truth is that there have been better times. Posts on Instagram, the economy has been better. It's been easier to sell art. Yeah, I think that's true. And I mean, really, all anyone cares about is just the narrow slice of history that is their life. Really, like, we can all say that. Oh well, times are bad. The empire is falling, but not like the Roman Empire fell, or pick your time period. Um, what keeps me going every day as artists, is that I'm alive and I have some dreams that keep me going. Yeah, I think that's good. That's good that you've got those. I think we all need dreams. We all need hope. Without it, what have we got? Reaper put, you've got some interesting news. I'm happy to hear it if you want to share it. And in the meantime, I'm going to put this guy's video on.
Describing how I make money as an artist. And I've been doing this for 20 something years, probably about 23 years now. It's been a long time. And I've done many different things over those years, but mainly I've been an independent freelance artist. So I've only ever had one job where I've actually been employed and gone to work at a different location than my house. And that was back in 2019, working at Procreate in Tassie. So that was a pretty cool experience, and I can probably make a video about that at some stage. But how do I make money currently as an independent freelance artist? Bread and butter job is board games. I do artwork for a game called Summoner Wars, published by Plat Hat Games. And they contacted
I
me
own the
through
Summoner Wars.
Instagram, I think, of all things. Or they found me on Instagram and emailed me back in 2017, offering me a gig on a board game they were making called Crystal Clans. And with a little negotiations on prices and things like that, I accepted. And that was probably one of the best things I've done in my career, financially and to grow as an artist, because it was a shit ton of work. It lasted like about 2 years, I think, on Crystal Clans. Hundreds and hundreds of character art created for that game. And the deadlines were tough.
Well, that's the sort of work you want, where you pretty much feel guaranteed for the next 6, 12 months or more to just have work constantly in your inbox, certainly from a security point of view. But yeah, so he is the Summoner Wars artist. I just sort of come across these videos randomly. This guy, Able Arts. Come back to this guy in a minute. But yes, even as a history nerd, of course, what matters is our life, right? Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's interesting what you learn from history. Like I say, I don't really study it. I read the what's his name? Is it Naval Yuri? Oh, I can't even remember his name. It was like I think his book was called. Was it Homo sapiens or just Sapiens? I can't remember. Where he talks about like a brief history of humanity. I remember that being a really fascinating book. I want to say his name was Yuval Harari, but yeah. Well, the news is that AI has become an investment magnet, and many people are considering whether the investment was worth it. Yeah, I've heard that this sort of week, whether we're in this kind of, like with the .com bubble where everyone was buying up .com domain names back in the early 2000s, and then those domain names rising hugely in value, and then within the space of a year or two, them being virtually worthless. People are speculating, I guess, this is what you're talking about, that AI is going to go the same way, where actually, there's a lot of investment going into AI, but a lot of it also isn't going to make people money. And I guess there's some sort of speculation that a few key players, like 11 Labs, the people that do, is it 11 Labs? No, OpenAI, sorry, OpenAI that do create the AI's ChatGPT and 11 Labs, that they'll probably do okay out of this, and maybe some other big players. But yeah, I think a lot of this AI might
So it was a
end
lot
up
of work,
making
but
people
it
poor, or the investors poor. I don't know why that keeps playing. So yeah, okay, yeah. So we will see. I don't know. It 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 already seems pretty scary, and there's already like I've probably already watched like 3 or 4 videos, or watched 5 or 6 or read 5 or 6 articles where people have said that AI has basically decimated their entire career. Whether they're writers for blog articles, and now ChatGPT is doing it virtually for free, or but even people like myself, I've seen my profits go down. Uh, I would say about 70% since 2020 to 2021 to now. I would say, yeah, I'm earning about 70% less than I was during those years, and it's scary times. And I've got to put that down to, like when you look at what's happened during these sort of times that could, you know, make this happen. Because you'd think the pandemic, COVID, would actually have been bad for sales. But for me personally, I had my best, or one of my best years ever in 2020 during the lockdown period, because everyone was at home browsing the internet, buying stuff to make themselves feel happy, and decorating their interiors or whatever. And so I ended up selling a load of art and prints and t-shirts and stuff back then. And since then, it's been it's going down quite a bit, and I've got to attribute a lot of that to AI. Not all to AI, but it's definitely something. Yes, of course, because theft is legal. Yeah, well, that is the trouble, isn't it? I wonder as well whether there will be. I mean, I don't know what's happening with the legal battles. There's certain artists that are trying to sue, for example, Mid-Journey, or whatever, for basically uh, using their artwork to train their AIs. And I'm sort of thinking, is that gonna work? Are they gonna get compensation from these AI software companies for training on data? I mean, the internet is such a wild west. I just don't know how you can police it. There's just so much stuff going on, which is all a bit weird, which probably shouldn't be happening, that is happening, but because it's in a digital world rather than a physical world, it just sort of it seems to perpetuate. Can I recommend you a great super relevant video? Yes, definitely. If you can, I don't know if you can you send a link in chat? If not, just type the name of it. AI can now fully produce your song. Your song, yeah, I know. Sono, I think, is the leading AI music software of choice at the moment. I've dabbled with it a little bit, and the latest version 5 of Sono, is insanely good. I was listening to a few demos the other day. To my ears, my non-professional music listening ears, it sounded good. Like I couldn't tell it was AI. If you're a musician now, like, guy, you think the art game is bad? Oh, I would hate to be a music producer right now. I just don't know. I don't know what people in that position do, because it's a much harder sell as well. because you've got to get people to actually sit down for 2 or 3 minutes to listen to a song to tell you whether or not they like it. Whereas with art, you can literally just show them and they'll give you a decision as to whether or not they like it within the space of 2 seconds. So when you have that added requirement on top of the fact that, yeah, you've got AI doing it, it's just crazy. So I have a T-shirt with no AI art on. Got to get the word out there. Yeah, definitely. It's as well being able to then articulate the reasons why AI art is bad, and I don't know if anyone's put together a good sort of video or article that states exactly, breaks down all the reasons as to why it's not a good thing. Like I hear a lot of like established big time pros, maybe not now, but certainly a year or two ago, that would say stuff like, I'm not worried about AI. It's like when Photoshop or whatever came about, there's always these new tools, but at the end of the day, AI can't teach you the things that you learn through being an artist. You can become an AI prompter, but you'll never know what it's like to, struggle with your art and produce an amazing picture, which, took a lot of time and effort in order to, like you don't get to experience the grind, which actually has value. You don't get to really noodle around and develop the ideas, in your own time. You're beholden to whatever the algorithm puts out there, and using that as an argument as to why, you know, don't worry about the AI art, bro. It's not, it's not going to, it's not that great. But the trouble is, if you just have less, if you have it like I guess a higher barrier to entry, because in order to be a professional artist outside of the standard of what AI can currently produce, you've got to be really good. But in order to get really good, you've got to practice a lot. In order to practice a lot, you need a lot of time. If you don't have like smaller, lower paid commissions coming in, because all that kind of lower paid job has been outsourced to AI, how are you going to be able to afford to live and have the time to do it? And like, it's all good and well if you have, parents or, a trust fund or something, people around you that are able to support you. If you've got to support yourself, which I'd imagine most people are in that position, it makes things a lot harder to deal with. Sorry, I know this is sort of slightly doomer talk, but I can't help myself sometimes. Um, so this is the name of the video. AI can now fully produce your song. Watch it; it's really amazing. You can trust me. All right, I'll make a note of that. Let me just bring up Notepad, just so I can put it up here. Oh, let's full screen that again. I'm reading a book called Techno Feudalism: What Killed Capitalism, a book by Yanis. Rubbish with names. Varoufakis. The thing is, the system that's the worst part. You got to change it. Yeah, I think that's true. Like, I think taking a stance on something like AI and saying no to AI is a good first step. But it's like with every issue that people are facing, it's worth digging a little bit deeper and thinking, well, why did this issue arise in the first place? Why does it continue to perpetuate? Is there something fundamentally wrong baked into society where we're just valuing, results and productivity over human beings? And if so, like, what the fuck are we doing as a species? Get pretty deep, I guess. But yeah, it sounds interesting. Have you finished the book, or are you near finishing it, or have you just started? The problem with AI in a year there'll be so much bad music that the few good ones will go unnoticed, and people who love music will go work elsewhere. Yeah, I just don't know what's going to happen. The thing is, some of the AI I've heard, it's good. It may not be like like a I don't know what you would say, but like a big hit that's going to stand the test of time. But it's up there, and I think there's already AIs on the Spotify charts that are just pushing regular creators like way down the list and are actually performing pretty well, like AI bands and things. So it does seem to me that potentially in the future, yeah. I mean, it's hard to project into the future exactly and and predict what exactly is going to happen. But so far as the music stuff goes, well, as far as everything goes, everything is just going to become completely saturated with AI because for every one song that it takes a human or a band to write, you're going to have, I don't know, 5,000 songs created and uploaded that day by prompters. And it's the same with images, it's the same with words. Um, and then, yeah, it would just saturate like 99.9% of the whole of the internet because there's just so much of it. And then how are you gonna offset that? But then what happens when AI starts being trained or training itself on other AI content? Are you just going to end up in is AI going to lead itself into a sort of dead end of its own making? Um, yeah, so if the AI talk is too boring, but it's interesting and it's kind of relevant. Um, so we will never change the system; we can only circumvent it. Yes, certainly as individuals, I sort of again, in my youth, I kind of believed I had a bit more potential to change things as an individual than I realised that we do as people. And I think the only way you can change systems is it's probably to collaborate in large enough scale such that you have a voice which could actually be heard and could actually make a change. So basically, you can still affect change, but you're going to have to do it as a cog in the sort of anti-establishment machine, I guess. So good vibes. I'm mid into the book. It's good. I think with all the stuff going on in the world, it's okay to just turn it off. Go out and read. I just finished Metro 2033. Amazing world building. Cool. Yeah. I don't know it, but yeah, I'm sure it is good. And yeah, it's also good to get out there off the screen. I mean, I've noticed even recently, I've started to feel a little bit addicted to screens, like noticeably so. Like reaching for the phone a little bit too often and then catching myself do it, whereas I didn't feel like I was doing that maybe even like last year. So yeah, definitely good to take a break from it. Touch grass, as they say. And yeah, it's a good tool. Yes, the problem is okay.
It helped me in so many different ways. So I don't want to get off track here. How do I make money as an artist? I'm still working for Plaid Hat Games. We're currently working on a game called Summoner Wars, which was released in 2021, and we just continue to do expansions to the game. So about every month and a half, I have a whole bunch of new artwork to make for them. It's usually about 8 characters for a new faction that gets implemented into the game. And that gets me enough money to kind of scrape by. Rent is a lot here. And this family is running solely on my income. So that is my bread and butter. That's like the stable kind of job. I'm pretty certain that they will give me a very good heads up if the work is going to stop or change. So it's kind of secure in that way, but freelance work is never really entirely secure. So on the flip side of that, I
I
do
mean,
my
this
own
guy's
work.
actually in a good position because like I say, I actually know the game he's talking about, Summoner Wars, and it's quite a well thought of game. Like, being a bit of a board game geek, like it ranks quite highly on the board game geek database. And once you've had a game that's a success, well, that's just key, really, because from that point on, you can then be, as a game publisher, you can then bring out subsequent titles, and you can kind of ride on the coattails of your own success of the previous game. So it's good to know that you're not just with a startup board game company, but you're with one that maybe at the time he didn't realize that this was going to be the hit that it turned out to be. But it did as well seem like the sort of game where expansions would be part and parcel of how that would operate. So it's good that the regular works coming in definitely helps to have that from a sort of security point of view.
I make my own books and make my own products and things like that. It's a bird. Um, so every couple of years, I put out a new art book. Currently, I've been kind of doing like sketchbooks, art books that are just a whole bunch of sketches and finished pieces collected in one book called Wonderings. We've had 2 volumes so far, which have been put on Kickstarter. The first one, I think, I can't remember what the final amount was, but it was successful. The second one went even better because it was twice as big, and that got funded about $69,000, which is amazing. It's the best Kickstarter we've ever done. Unfortunately, all of that money just disappeared on expenses and some debts that I had to pay and things like that, and having a baby. And so people see the figure that you make on Kickstarter and like, oh, we must be rich. No, I'm scraping by. But
Mm. Thing is, if that went on his debts, like he'd still have to pay those debts regardless. It's just good that he got to do it based on the back of a Kickstarter rather than having to work some shitty job in, I don't know, some place where he doesn't want to work. But
fairs and things like that, not really kind of doing them at the moment because I had a baby. But I'm really hoping to get back into that next year. So I don't know how many shows I might do, but let's at least a couple. And they could be a weekend where hopefully make at least $2,000. The last shows I've did were just terrible, but they've been good in the past, and you can make some decent money.
yeah,
On
I'm
top of
wondering
that,
what currency he says because he sounds Australian, and I think I can't remember what my translations are like, but 2,000 in Australian isn't as much as it is in US dollars. But yeah, I wonder what the comic convention scene is like out there. I mean, I don't know where he's from. I'm just speculating.
I have a Patreon, and I've had a Patreon since about 2016. In its peak, it was really, really good. I was making enough to pay my mortgage every month just from Patreon. But over the years, my enthusiasm, my effort has also dwindled, and therefore the income that has provided has dwindled as well. Recently, kind of tried to bring it back, but I think the market has changed. Maybe the interest in my work has changed, so it's not really doing nearly as well as it used to. But that does help.
So yeah, Patreon. Do we think that that's good now? Like I've never used it, but it seemed to be probably back in, was it like 15 or thereabouts? It seemed about 10 years ago. It seemed to be the thing that people would turn to. A lot of artists seemed for that to be their main source of revenue. Like you said, it's perhaps not quite what it used to be. I'm not sure if it still is worth having something like that. I mean, the good thing about it, if you've got a subscription based art business where you can basically see that I've got 100 supporters that are all supporting me for $10, and it's like, right, okay, well, I know that this is going to be enough, like you said, to pay the rent or whatever. So it seems like a good idea. I just don't know how many people these days are using it.
Bring in I don't know, probably about like $500 a month or something like that, which really, really helps when you're just getting by. So Patreon, and then I have all my digital products on my store. So I have digital versions of my sketchbooks, and I have brushes. So bird is just flying past me every few seconds. Actually, I'll show you. These are my friends, Tatu and Mahano. I can't remember what her name is. My partner named her. Hello, guys. You're beautiful. Interrupting my ranting about work. I'll feed you in a minute. Procreate brushes. So back when I was working at Procreate, I was doing a Q&A job. So I was testing the app. And they implemented the brush making feature in the app and didn't really tell us how it worked. So it was up to us to kind of figure it out. And I thought, well, what better way to figure out a brush making engine than to make my own brushes? And so I set a task for myself. I'm going to create brushes that I really love. So that's what I did. And that was also one of the best things I have ever done because they popped off. I put a lot of effort into them.
And I can imagine the whole brush thing, because the amount of artists I've seen that sell brushes on Gumroad, I'm thinking, God, if I wanted to buy every brush that I've seen for sale on Gumroad, I'd have a brush library of about 50,000 brushes, and obviously I wouldn't be using them all. But I can imagine. I mean, I don't really know the whole brush scene. I tend to just use the very basic standard digital brushes when it comes to digital art. I don't spend too much time with different textured brushes, but I can imagine being part of Procreate's initial sort of development team before they really had much in the way of brushes, to sort of be there at the very start and to then be able to pump those out as a product pretty much before anyone else was doing it, kind of allowed sort of capturing the market. I'm not sure if you could do that now as a thing. So, fair enough, he's only talking about how he makes money as an artist rather than how other people can. But I always kind of think with these, well, what's in it for me? What's in it for us other artists? Can we replicate what he's doing in some way? But I don't think the Procreate brushes would be the answer on that occasion. But who knows? So yeah, you see, in the end, it all comes back down to good old money, 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 money. It does indeed. Patreon is great if you're super famous. I think everything is good if you're super famous, whether you're on YouTube or Instagram, TikTok, or have your own Shopify page, and you can just send traffic your way. I think it's a terrible idea. I don't like being at the mercy of other people's goodwill. Yeah, I mean, I think to some extent it would be goodwill, but I guess if you've got something of value to give people that people care about, yeah, why not? I mean, I feel like even even paying attention to a video, you're still giving someone. Yeah, what am I trying to say here? You're still provide by watching a video. You're both providing the viewer value and also you're expecting something in return, which is their attention rather than money. So it's like a two-way thing. Exactly. I love everyone. I don't want to see evil in anyone. But this advice seems so insane. Yeah, it's not seeing evil. It's just being kind of more realistic. Just seeing what people are saying and then trying to apply it to a more not mainstream approach to doing things, but like if you don't happen to work for the software manufacturer Procreate, which this guy did, which is it's probably the second biggest art program that you can use outside of the Adobe stuff. Like if you didn't happen to be working for them when they were setting out their art products and make those sort of brushes, there's no way to replicate that kind of success yourself. So you're going to have to potentially look for something else. But interesting to just hear how he's making it, I guess. Phil, okay, so you've made a couple of brushes. It's not terribly difficult, but it's not something I wanted to put time into. Yeah, I think I've made about 2 Photoshop brushes, but I made those specifically to work on a specific piece of artwork that needed like a sort of replicating brush type of pattern. I think it was like a bubble brush. So I had a little bit of artwork where I wanted to create like what looked like bubbles coming out of a sea creature's mouth or blowhole or whatever it was. And so I created like a little bubble brush. For all I know, if I tried to sell that, it would be successful. But of course, the main thing would be, how do you get people to your Gumroad? I don't know why it's always Gumroad. I've never actually bought anything from Gumroad, but that seems to be the site that everyone uses to sell their brushes. But it's an option. At least it's an option. So I think Patreon is great in good economic times and terrible when people don't have any excess money. Yeah, it's one of those things. I think anything to do with art and hobbies, it's it's a luxury expense or a luxury product, really, isn't it? So you're trying to just find something that, yeah, something that you can sell that doesn't require people to like really have to scrutinize the pennies and weigh up if they can afford it and stuff, and perhaps it's not too perhaps it's, you know what I'm saying. Please don't take me too seriously. I'm just a bitter artist. I'm sure a lot of people make a lot of money from these initiatives. Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying. It's cool. I think, yeah, we're all trying to do our own thing. This guy's got his thing. I've got mine. I'm sure you've got yours. Things that you're thinking about, wanting to try test. Things that will work for you, that won't work for me. Things that will work for him, that won't work for us. But you never know. You watch enough of these kind of things, and you might find a few ideas where it's like, oh, okay, maybe that's something worth trying. On the brush side of things, I'm not convinced. Like it might, again, I don't use different types of brushes, so I might not be the sort of the right person to sort of have an opinion on this. If you're always constantly using and buying brushes, like maybe it's different. Maybe there is a big market for that kind of thing. Certainly with traditional mediums, people love buying art materials. People love buying, paints and marker pens, and even if they've got, half full tubes of paint, people will just want to buy more. It's people.
Effort into
I'm sure a lot
marketing
of
them and making
artists end
videos
up.
about them.
Just went again. I'm sure a lot of artists just think if they buy enough art materials, it'll make their art better, or they just want to buy something and just get a little high out of buying. They just want a little.
Like that, and they are still selling, thank God, because the money that is coming through from that is extremely helpful. It's kind of just plateauing at the moment. I don't really promote them very much at all. Primarily the sales are coming from Gumroad, and the sales from that are generally coming from YouTube, which I don't really make many YouTube videos anymore, but in the past I think people find those videos and they eventually hop on somehow and grab the brushes.
I'm just going to pause that because I like stats. It's interesting when you can actually see where the referrers are coming from, where people are actually getting things from. So I guess this is like I say, I don't have a Gumroad account, but I guess it's like the back end, which basically shows you where your traffic is coming from and where that's going. So 4,220 sales, through YouTube, through his YouTube account. That's a lot, isn't it? That seems like a lot of sales of a product. Recommended by Gumroad, nearly 2,000. Then we've got direct sales, Able Art, Gumroad, okay. Then Google. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know whether you top that up. Sorry, my phone just thought I was talking to it. Yeah, I don't know whether you, if you top that up, that's 6, 7, 8,000, 8,500, something like that. That's a lot of sales for like amateurs, I mean, I don't know if it's just brushes or his digital books as well, but let's just say most of that is through digital brushes. That's a lot of sales for just like a sort of independent artist to get through selling digital brushes. Like, I wouldn't have thought there were that many artists that would be looking, that have Procreate, that are also looking to buy brushes and would also happen to know about his brushes. Um, but yeah, if he's I mean, how big's his YouTube channel? Okay, so he's got 37,500 subscribers. This video got sort of 2,000, which it's okay. These days, you know, you can't expect huge numbers off of YouTube, but yeah, it seems to be doing really, really well out of the brushes. Um, so yeah, I think like an old man, my plan has always been, I'm an unknown. I'm going to profit from the appeal of the original. Well, I think that's a good tactic. Uh, I just keep thinking about arguments like selling prints or selling limited edition prints. There are 50,000 artists trying this. Does this have a future? Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I think this, you know, and I think it's easy to think like this guy. Okay, well, like I couldn't imagine there being that many more people that would be looking to buy more brushes. But I mean, he's saying his sales are still coming in and still, you know, may have plateaued a little bit, may not be on the rise, but you know, he's still getting sales. And I'm just thinking, I can't, I don't know. Like again, I don't know the market, but I mean, there are other platforms like there's one called Creative Market and another one called Invato, and these basically are sites whereby you can sell assets to aid photographers, designers, graphic artists, UX designers, things like that. And you can sell like logo packs and photographs, MP3s, brushes. And I think there must be quite a few people on Creative Market or Envato that are selling brushes as well. Uh, I don't know, but then at the same time, like there are new artists popping up all the time. Like the girl in the last video, like she's not old. Like like me being 43 years old, like I was probably getting paid commission work before you know, while she was still in diapers. So you know, new people are coming into the scene all the time and then trying to get in on the scene and somehow making it work. So it does seem like there is always opportunity at any stage to get in on something which people are already doing. And then perhaps it's just down to the content or having a little gimmick or just something that someone else isn't quite doing, and that might be just enough to get the ball rolling. You know, if you can get eyeballs on your product, and then from there, who knows? You know, uh, could always just be the next big thing. So yeah, for me, all of this is so unbelievable. After trying, I didn't see any results. Yeah, I think that is the trouble. I think most aspiring artists are going to, you know, they'll set up a Squarespace page on the internet or a Shopify page because they're told that that's what they need to do, and then they'll put a few products on there, a few art prints or whatever, and then they won't get any sales. You know, to me, I'm sort of thinking, well, obviously, because little do you know before you've tried all this stuff, you know, you don't just build it and then people come to the website. You've got to then market it. So then artists learn that, all right, okay, I need to build an Instagram page, and then you post on Instagram and no one's really looking at that. And then you're like, all right, okay, well, maybe I'll try YouTube, and then you post on YouTube, and, you know, you can't build up on that. And even if you can, like, sales are far and few between, and you're sort of doing it for years and years or however long, and you just think, is this even possible? Like, how the hell are people selling 8,500 brushes when I can't even sell one brush or, you know, 5 prints? But at the same time, I guess it's good to know that we have the internet and we can actually see people doing it. So we know that it's not impossible. Um, but yeah, at the same time, it can be very demoralizing when you're giving up your evenings or your weekends or perhaps your days of sort of to build something, and you're not being rewarded for it. I can totally get that. Very frustrating times. Uh, but I mean, I'm willing to believe this guy. I'm willing to believe that he didn't just make up this little uh, sort of back end results of his referrers and views and sales. And I know that because like I've had some success. Like I've sold at this point about I think 4,000 pieces of artwork of various types, and I've sold hundreds and hundreds of thousands of my how to draw books. So I know that it can be done. Uh, and I'm not saying this to try and brag. I'm just saying it as a reference point. Um, but sometimes as well, like there's always like these little hidden things that they won't tell you on these videos. Like you might find this guy's selling 10,000 brushes or whatever, but you don't learn that each of those brushes after fees or whatever, like he's only earning $1 per brush or whatever. Let's just say $1. And then in which case, okay, you say 10,000 brushes sold, $10,000, that's not even going to be able to pay his rent or his mortgage for a year. So how is he going to make the rest of his money? So it's always swings and roundabouts. There's always, it's never straightforward, and you never get the full picture. But I think if people are willing to try and figure this stuff out, they at least have a shot at it. I mean, I can't make any guarantees. I'm still trying to figure out how to really go full time with this, but like there's always examples of it being done, and I feel like that is at least reassuring, personally. But yeah, so here we are. My plan is to become an immortal monster of timeless art, and yours? Well, that would be pretty good. Uh, I think that, yeah. Why not have the goal? Um, I don't know whether my plan would to immortalize myself by creating something timeless, but something I have thought recently. I mean, I have these little thoughts from time to time, like when you're starting out, when you're a kid, you just want to draw Mickey Mouse, don't you? You want to just draw Bart Simpson, or you want to draw Goku from Dragon Ball Z, or perhaps if you're a girl, you want to draw Barbie or something, or maybe a Pokemon character. Um, yeah, you just want to be able to draw it, and then you get to a point where you can draw it, and then you want to make up your own characters or have your own spin on the sort of artwork you want to create. But then eventually you get to a point where you start to think, certainly for someone like yourself, Reaper, but if you're into sort of philosophy, spirituality, that stuff like that, you would probably start to think, well, wait a minute, can I actually make something that has more substance than some fan art from some Disney franchise or whatever? And then that I mean, if you have those ideas and you want to create something like really substantive and meaningful, like you got to just do it, haven't you? It's not about money at that point. Um, but it would be good to be able to do something which I think would connect on a deeper level than just a pretty picture. But at the same time, there's nothing wrong with a pretty picture. One of my favourite directors, an anime director, Kawajiri, who did animes like Vampire Hunter D, Bloodlust, Ninja Scroll. He did the Highlander anime. Yeah, really like his work. And he said in an interview, when asked why he creates the sort of stuff he does, what's his biggest inspiration and that kind of thing. And he just said, I want to make cool looking art, and his art is very cool. His whole style, his direction, uh, yeah, like everything he does just looks fucking badass. Sorry about the swearing, but yeah, it just looks. You've got to just put it in those terms. It just looks like something that a teenage boy growing up would look at and think, "Wow, this is blowing my mind." And not because it's making you reflect in a deeper, meaningful way, but just 'cause it blows your mind for just being, hardcore, stylized action and fun uh, and anyway, yeah, I've heard a few people say stuff like that. Another artist I used to like as a kid, Todd McFarlane, who was a comic book artist, worked on Spider-Man, then started working on Spawn for comic book geeks out there. Again, he said the same sort of thing. He just wants to draw cool art. And I took that on board and I thought, yeah, why not let that just be your reason? Why not just create artwork that you like because to you it excites you, it makes you have think you think it's cool, and you think other people will enjoy it and think it's cool. Sorry, tangents again. Wow, I didn't know that. You did great. So yeah, that's about the success I've had with my artwork. Yeah, I appreciate that. Um, I mean, that's what's allowed me to have at least a part-time career with the art thing. I think a lot of people will think, wow, what, you sold nearly 1 million books? Firstly, either they'll think I'm bullshitting, which I'm not, or they'll think, well, you must be a millionaire. It's like, oh, you've made it. Why the hell are you complaining about struggling as an artist online? You like, are you lying to us? I'm not. The trouble is with the books I did, we completely went for like a high quantity bombarding the market approach. By we, I mean my publishers. So I end up getting a royalty on these books that sell, and my royalty varies between, I think, 1 and maybe 10 pence. So that's like, and yeah, Phil, that's encouraging to know though. But yeah, it's always good. There's always a chance to garner some success. Um, but it's just not easy. That's the trouble. Call me a monster, but I still think there's a lot of power in being validated by the industry or the market. Yeah, I don't think so. I think it's more. It's just human, and I think even if your sole goal was validation, like I don't think you should be hated for that or called a monster, really. Because I mean, a lot of these issues are probably deep rooted psychological traumas, whereby perhaps people just don't feel valued in life. They've got some hang up from their childhood or something, and they just want people to acknowledge them. And I don't think that's a crime to want to feel like that. I feel like everyone at some point in their life needs a bit of validation and acknowledgement, even if it's you know, just for the likes and the clicks. If it gets you through the day, why not? Um, So yeah, only those who don't understand the details and the expenses of the market will think that you've gotten rich. Well, this is the thing. It's like this guy said with his uh, his board game work. It's all good and well, but that money soon gets eaten up on bills, and there's expenses. And when he was doing his, I think no, it was his digital art books. So you can make $50,000 on a Kickstarter campaign, and people think, wow, you made $50,000 for a week's worth of work by running a Kickstarter campaign. But obviously, you had to work on the product to begin with. And even if that only took you 3 or 4 months to complete the product that you're then selling on Kickstarter, it's like, well, it's not that was 3 months of work for $50,000. You then have to manufacture the book, and then you have to send it to customers, and uh, deal with distributors, and a lot of that money ends up going into the shipping costs and printing costs. And I think a lot of these Kickstarters, it seems to me that people will make their money back after the Kickstarter has finished. So the first part, the to get it funded is just so they can get a print run done, but that's in order just to sort of settle costs. And then afterwards, that's when people start to finally profit from all this kind of stuff. So it's you always got to be in it for the long game. I was going to say there's very few artists that get rich quick. In fact, I can't think of any. Can you? Can you think of any artists that have ever had literal overnight success without having put the work in beforehand? Um, you made 5,000 or less. Um, I don't know if that's in response to how much I made from my books. No, I made tens of thousands of pounds. But yeah, it was over a long period of time, and definitely not as much as you'd expect given the quantity sold. I think a lot of people would think, oh, if I could just sell 1,000 books, I wouldn't have to work all year. But unfortunately, it doesn't always work like that. It can do, if you're selling a book and you're getting $10 of profit per sale, great. But if you're only getting a penny or two, it's not quite the same deal, unfortunately.
I'm not at a point where I can just live off brush sales. I wish I could, because then I could have, way more time to focus on the things that I want to do. But it's still pretty good. It's probably about, $150 a week. And that's for me pretty much doing nothing, which is absolutely amazing. And it's made me realize that I don't want to be a slave to commission jobs and freelance jobs for the rest of my life, because they can be unreliable and it is a grind. So I've really tried to make sure that I work on building something that generates passive income. Brushes are a prime example of that. On the other hand, I don't want to exploit it and come across as fake and not genuine. I only ever want to make brush sets when I feel like I have something good to share, which is why I haven't put out a brush set for like 2 years at least. But I really do need to capitalize on that, because it is a good little income earner. What else? Commissions, like traditional commissions, I do those as well every now and then. I just did an A3 commission for $1,500, which is the most I've ever charged, I think, for an A3 commission.
I want to know, I'm really keen to know if he's talking about Australian or American dollars to put this into better context, because I'm always mentally trying to translate into pounds, British pounds. But that seems pretty good. $1,500 for an A3 for an original. I think this guy's doing pretty well. I think if he can do more of those, he should definitely think about it. Yeah, I'll admit I'm autistic. I feel like a child hearing about adult issues. What now, or just in general in life? But yeah, it's life is complicated whether you're dealing with a non-neurotypical brain or not, I think. I'm here painting and hoping for the best. This guy is living the dream. Yeah, yeah, partly, I guess. I really feel like, we talked about luck earlier. I feel like this guy has had a little bit of luck, especially with the whole brush situation of basically creating, early Procreate brushes before, that was potentially a thing. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he was working for Procreate in his employed job, which he got basically paid to do, and at that same time was creating the brushes, which he then got on to sell for extra cash later on, and sort of effectively kill two birds with one stone. I mean, that's how you want to do it. So, yeah, I kind of feel like he did well there. But his art's really good. I like it. I think from what it is, that sort of comic book illustrative style, I think he's got some really good art. Like, so I think I think you can see why, when you look at some artists' work, like why they're doing pretty well. Like the girl before, she had really good art. I mean, to my I mean, I'm not 10 out of 10, know exactly what I'm doing with art and design. I could see that there was a couple of little issues with a few bits of her artwork. There was one little bit where the collarbone looked like it wasn't spaced quite correctly. But overall, she was still a better artist than I am. So, you know, but I can see with this guy, he's doing good things. And I think, yeah, I think that just goes a long way. If you're just a really good artist, it definitely helps bump you up in the ratings, and yeah, deserves his success.
But when you've been working for 23 years, you know, you have to put your price up. The world changes and everything is expensive right now. So anyway, I probably missed a whole bunch of things, but this video is getting way too long now. So if you've got any questions about how I do things and how I make money and stay afloat, let me know. Hello again. Thank you for watching this video. It was very impromptu because I'd made it for TikTok, and I've actually been using my very small TikTok account to document my graphic novel writing journey. So if that is something that interests you, I'm posting every day on TikTok just for like a minute or so, describing what I'm doing on this like little challenge. For 90 days, I'm getting up at 5 a.m. every morning and writing my story. And it's very exciting, and it's got a lot of ups and downs, and yeah, so go check that out if you're interested. On the other hand, yes, this video is very kind of slapped together, but like I just really don't have the time to make polished, professional looking YouTube videos. And to be honest, I can't be because life is hard enough being a new dad and trying to make this business run, and every algorithm just kind of doesn't work. So I'm just going to do things that are easy for me, and I hope that you guys will be along for the ride. I'd like to talk about other things as well in future videos. I'll always try and put some artwork next to my little ramblings. But yeah, thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time.
Cool. So yeah, I mean, I think that's the good thing about when you're competent in what you do, and you've got, what was it, 30,000 YouTube subscribers, and your videos tend to get a few thousand. I think at that point, when you're regularly getting thousands of views per video, that is the perfect opportunity to do what this guy did, where basically you've got a little plug at the end of it, whether it's for a product or another sort of social media account or whatever it is. Because this is something that I've thought about with my videos, because I'm getting double digits still, or lucky to get into the triple digits, sort of 200 view mark on typical videos. Like until I'm kind of getting anywhere, there's no point plugging anything, because I don't especially want to potentially alienate anyone by pitching what I'm doing too much. So yeah, I mean, my theory is, and my advice that I would give out to anyone that's sort of trying to do the art career, the social media thing, build the following first before pitching the products. Because I think people don't mind if you want to pitch your stuff, if they care about you and what you're doing, and you've spent time sort of building up sort of online rapport with people. But if you haven't really built that, it can kind of feel like, right, here's my little message. Now this was all in aid of, trying to get you to buy my stuff, and it kind of comes across a bit disingenuous, I think. But I think that's the way to do it. So yeah. Sorry to insist. Tell me, what is your career plan? If you could choose, where do you want to go? Yeah, sorry, I'm being a bit elusive there, I guess. And wow, I felt this guy's pain now. Yeah, I think. As far as this guy goes, I think he's got good art, and I think he's making a sort of decent little modest career from his art. And yeah, like you say, for him, he's probably sort of living the dream. I think, he's not making millions, but if he can pay his bills, and I mean, if he's also able to, pay for his his family and stuff as well, he's doing great. But so far as my career plan goes, I'm not sure. Like I say, when I was younger, I wanted to be a comic book artist, and but then I had to backtrack and realize that that wasn't going to happen. And I think there's been so many things like that in the career where I wanted to do something, and I realized for some reason that wasn't going to happen. I've come up with so many iterations of the career and the path that I've sort of led. Um, so to start with, yeah, I wanted to do comics, but I realized I was really slow at drawing, and I realised that in order to make a comic, you've got to do a lot of drawing and kind of quickly, because if you're too slow, it's going to take you 20 years to, finish a single book. And plus, my artwork wasn't really there when I was younger at the time. I'd struggled too much, and that would, I'd have to use so much reference, and I'd have to keep throwing away pages and starting again. So that just wasn't really working out for me. So I thought, let's try and just play to my strengths a little bit. Let's maybe just focus on character design, so I don't have to think about sequential art and backgrounds and stuff like that. So I thought about becoming a character designer and doing projects for games and things like that. And I don't know why that just didn't really seem to work out. At the same time, I kind of, as much as I liked doing that, I didn't want to work within a studio, within a company as an employee. So I kind of backpedaled on that idea. And then for a while, I became like a freelancer tattoo artist. And I was doing tattoos for a bit, backpedaled on that because that was basically getting too stressful, causing me health issues and stuff like that. And then finally, I came to the conclusion that moving forward, my career is going to be like this guy, kind of like a freelancer, but certainly someone that specializes in creating products and then selling them. And by products, I mean even like original artworks or art prints, stuff like that. And then I would sell those at either conventions or online. So that was the goal, and that's what I'm doing. And now I'm at a point where that stuff kind of like has plateaued, and I'm unfortunately not at a point where I am able to sustain a full-time living doing that stuff. So I have to work other jobs to try and get the money coming in, which means I don't have as much time to devote just to the art side of things. So my whole thing now was like, well, let's try and get on YouTube, start putting up videos every week, and do what has been said in these videos. Put your face out there, that kind of thing. Try and cultivate that and learn to sort of build a channel. And I'm still learning it. I'm not great in front of the camera. I don't really know what I'm doing. I don't have lots of good, fun, entertaining things to put in front of the camera. I just say my opinions basically. And the ultimate idea would be to, I guess, be like this guy where you got tens of thousands of subscribers, and then to be able to put content out, little ideas, things you're working on for your audience to kind of care, and then at the end of it to say, oh yeah, I'm also working on these new limited edition art prints. They're available at the moment. They won't be available forever. So go to the store and get them while you can. And I think just selling art prints, selling limited edition art prints seems to be where I think I would like things to go. But it's all a little bit fuzzy because I'm still trying to iron that out, and I'm still sort of thinking, how do you do that given the fact, you've got AI out there, you've got competitive markets. The sort of artwork I produce, like this guy, you don't set, like this guy isn't going to sell his artwork in a fine art gallery. He could do, but he'd have to adapt everything he's doing. He'd have to stop doing character artwork and, girls and fairies and monsters and stuff like that. That stuff isn't going to work. My stuff isn't going to work in that kind of environment. So I'm kind of thinking, okay, it's going to have to all just be online then, really, at the minute, I think. But yeah, and at the minute, it's really just it's trying to take one step at a time and then focus on the kind of YouTube side of things and trying to get better at figuring out, if there's a way so I'm trying to figure out if there is a way to be more successful at YouTube and social media and stuff like that, given my sort of natural shortcomings or whatever it is, whether it's my patience, my ability to articulate myself properly, to be as passionate as I perhaps need to be if I'm in front of a camera, to be more relatable. There's so many things about presenting yourself as a person. I'm trying to sort of just work on that more, and then when I feel like I've kind of got to a point where that's okay, then I'm going to think about the next step. So sorry to go off on one, and to go off on one just about, with a backstory of my work history rather than say answer the question of exactly where I want my career to go. But I do feel like, yeah, selling products and prints, things like that would be the ideal path. But at the same time, there's uncertainty as to exactly how that would work. So, yeah. So yeah, Phil says I wouldn't be upset if I was in his position. Lol. Yeah, I think that's it. It's like I get the impression that, yeah, he's a little bit burnt out. He hasn't really got time for his YouTube videos, and yeah, but he's feeling a little bit of a pinch and a bit of pressure. But yeah, I mean, to have a regular client doing this kind of cool artwork. I mean, if you like this sort of stuff, which I love this stuff. I would love to have a client who's like, yeah, I'm going to basically pay you for the next couple of months to just design half a dozen characters or whatever. Brilliant. I mean, that is living the dream, isn't it? And if the money that you're getting from that can actually pay the bills, and you're sort of working on a par with, or at least earning what someone working a regular day job is earning, it's like, yeah, I can see the appeal there. So yeah, you've got a lot of value to offer, and you're doing very well. Well, thank you very much. I do appreciate that. I appreciate you stopping by as well. It's does make it a little bit easier just to have some ideas to sort of bounce off of when you're sort of going through these sort of things. So I think I might watch one more video and then call it a day. So should we see what the next one has in store?
This video is sponsored by Squarespace. Hey gang, I'm 1000.
Oh yeah, 8 secrets to supercharge my art career. Now 1000, I think he's probably one of the biggest art entertainment channels on YouTube, I would say. I've only watched like 2 or 3 of his videos before, but he's sort of seconds to Jazza potentially. Again, I've only watched sort of 3 or 4 of his videos, but be interested to see what his take is on this kind of stuff.
I am what you might call a professional artist. I've been doing art as my job for like a decade, and today I have 8 tips that helped me in my art career. So, without further ado, let's just jump into the tips. My first tip, something that I learned early on in my art career, is investing in better art supplies. When you first start out, you want to grab the absolute cheapest bargain bin Walmart art supplies you can, because you're like, I'm broke, I don't even know if I'm good at art, I'm just gonna get these super cheap ones. But slowly you're gonna start recognizing that the higher quality your art supplies are, it means the less work that you're gonna have to do to make something look good, and the less you're gonna have to use to create your art. So even though the price tag on the bottle is more expensive, you're gonna use a lot less of it because it's much higher quality. For instance, golden fluid acrylics. It's a type of paint that I use. I talk about it a lot in my videos. They are very expensive, but the amount of coverage that you get with one single coat and the amount that you have to use in order to get the coverage that you want is significantly less than, what's the cheap brand from like Walmart? Artisans, Craftsman, I forget what it's called. I'll show an image on screen. But that stuff is so thin that you have to use like 10 layers to get the coverage that you want. And you've used like almost all the bottle on one single part, whereas with the golden fluid acrylics, you just use a little bit. It makes life a lot easier. This goes for tape, this goes for brushes,
I will say though that if you're absolutely beginning on your artistic journey, don't do this because if you're still like experimentation phase and you don't really know what sort of mediums you like and you want to try out different types of paints, I feel like just getting good at the art itself is way more important than the level of finish. And really what he says is very much just once you start, really start to make it as a professional. But I mean, to his credit, he's talking about, the secrets to help his art career. So he's talking about it in a more professional sense. But I don't know. Maybe this just I'm just very frugal, but I tend to think that you can get good results without having the most expensive thing. And when you're just starting out in an art career and you don't have a lot of cash, do you really want to spend, $3,000 on the latest Cintiq Wacom graphics tablet, for example, and a $5,000 supercomputer in order to run it flawlessly? Probably not. Probably a little Huey graphics tablet will do you, or if you want a set of marker pens, you can get good results with cheap marker pens as long as they're blendable, and they you can get good results. Not the best results, but I think you to go straight for the very highest luxury things where each paintbrush is like $100. I don't think that's necessary personally, but this is just my take on it, and I like to offer a counterpoint to what he's saying. I'm not necessarily saying he's completely wrong. I'm just offering another perspective.
Goes for paint. This goes for almost any art supply. Also, one hack that I learned early on is I would buy really expensive white and then super cheap colors. And I would mix the darkest version of like a really cheap color with the expensive white, and then cheap color would take on the attributes of the expensive white. And it was my little money saving hack until I could afford all the good colors. Tip number 2, and that's having a good plan. I used to just get a blank canvas and just be so excited to create, and then just kind of like go for it, dive right in, start putting paint there, no real plan in the world, hoping for the best. Maybe it'll turn out sick, maybe it'll be a piece of trash. But having a good plan, starting out with a very solid concept sketch, or at least something loose in your sketchbook, lets you edit and lets you tweak and lets you change until you actually do have a good composition, is gonna make your final piece a lot better more often than if you just kind of go for it and hope for the best. Also, if you have a really detailed concept sketch, you can use transfer paper to transfer that sketch onto the panel so you're not drawing the same thing over and over and over again. Same with murals. You can use a projector, you can use a grid to transfer your really meticulous concept sketch that you spent 30 hours in the studio making or whatever, and you don't have to keep doing it over and over and over again. Once you've got a good solid roadmap, you're good.
Yeah, I've always wondered about a good method for transferring, like if you're working digitally, maybe you want to do the line work digitally, or you've done line work and you don't want to necessarily mess it up by sticking paint or ink over the top of it. Like, how do you best replicate that? I suppose there's so many different ways to do it. I didn't really think about using that kind of carbon paper or transfer paper to potentially put that onto a canvas, but that probably wouldn't be a bad idea. And these days, there's a lot of people that are using like not AI, sorry, going back to AI, VR. I knew it was 2 letters, 2 initials. Virtual reality. Have you seen those headsets where people put the sort of VR painting, like they put like a sketch on their kind of view, and then they kind of map that onto a wall, or if they're doing murals or a big canvas, and then they basically can then paint kind of like trace over the top. That seems pretty fun. That's an interesting way of doing it.
To go, baby. So yeah, having a good plan is my second tip. My third tip really changed a lot for me. And when I started focusing on this, it definitely allowed me to make a significantly higher income than I was before off of my artwork. And that is focus on affordable art items. Let's say you make a painting and you want to sell it for like $1,000. You're early on in your art career. It's kind of hard to find somebody who will actually spend $1,000 on a painting. They're out there. You can definitely do it. But if you take that painting and make a high resolution scan, and then you make some beautiful art prints out of them, and you sell them for $50. If you sell those prints 1,000 times, that's $50,000. If you sell it 500.
I like these ones where they're like, oh yeah, you've got an original art that you could sell for $1,000, but imagine if you made prints of it. All you've got to do is sell 100,000 of these prints for even $1, and you've made $100,000. That's all you got to do. As though it's that simple to sell, 100,000, or even, what did he say, 50? I can't remember. Well, 500. Sorry, 500 prints. And that's a big ask. Like, if you don't have a following, that's a lot of prints. Like I say, I've sold maybe 4,000 but some of those were like small little ones where I was getting like a few dollars per of profit per go. Others were bigger versions as well, but like to sell 500 of one design, I don't know. I don't know how many artists could actually do that. Um, so yeah, I don't want to be bitter, but I suppose we're all in the do-it-yourself phase. Yeah, we are. I think every artist kind of has to be. We have to kind of figure out our own path when it comes to this kind of stuff. I don't know why, but I find his voice a bit annoying. It is, isn't it? It's very like squeaky and nasally. I don't think I could sit for a 10-minute video of this. Okay, well, if you've got to check out, that's fine. I completely get it. And yeah, I agree. Tell young people to buy some dollar store brands and experiment until you find something you really like before splurging. Yeah, I think even with wannabe professionals as well. Certainly the dollar store stuff for the experimentation, and then just build it up as you go. And also, it's something nice to look forward to. You feel like, oh, okay, I'm in year 2 of my art career. I've maybe had a little win. I had my first commission. I've sold my first piece of art. Oh, I'm going to use that to effectively put back into the business and upgrade my materials and maybe buy something a little bit better. Reaper put, as I told you, I think like an old man. You don't need anything more than coal and paper. Yeah, charcoal and paper. Yeah, I think so. It's like, people. I mean, yeah. You can talk about art materials, and artists love it, or wannabe artists love spending all day talking about buying art materials. But it's so low on the hierarchy of necessities in order to create good art. Like the real thing is, I suppose the real thing is kind of like a good idea, and then the next good thing is like just good execution of that idea, and then the medium or materials you use are like tertiary to those, really. So yeah, definitely don't overhype yourself with the material thing, I think.
100 times, that's $25,000. If you sell it 100 times, that's $5,000. That's still a good deal more than the $1,000 you would have sold the painting for, and you could still sell the painting for $1,000. But instead of doing that one work on that one piece and selling it one time and then starting that process all over again, there's a whole lot more income that you can make off of that effort that you put in. Maybe somebody can't afford the painting, maybe they'll get a t-shirt or a print. Maybe they can't afford a t-shirt or a print, maybe they'll get a sticker or a postcard. So having affordable art merchandise for
By the way, again, I like to counterpoint. I don't think this is bad advice to have prints in addition to an original. I think it's perfectly good advice. If you have an original rather than like a digital version, then yeah, you've got something which you can effectively sell for a higher price point item for those looking to spend that much. So yeah, if you're a traditional artist, you've always got that bonus over digital artists. And yeah, it is a good idea. Yeah, if people can't afford the $1,000 thing, maybe they can get the $100 thing or the $5 thing. The only caveat I would say with that is sometimes if you offer too many options, people will just go like, oh, okay, well, I was going to buy the $100 thing, but because you have a slightly smaller $10 version, I'll just get that instead. And then you basically lose out on the $100 sale by offering something which some buyers would have been prepared to pay if you hadn't potentially offered a cheaper option. I mean, I don't know to what extent that's always true. It's almost impossible to do the sort of the counterfactual math of would someone have paid more had you not offered the alternative. But yeah, it's worth thinking about sometimes, I think, when you're trying to sort of offer a range of different price point products.
For me, that's when my eyes opened up and I was able to really like make a comfortable living off of my artwork and not constantly be worrying about where my next commission was coming from or finding that whale that's going to give me $5,000 for a painting. As part of this, you can call this tip 3.5. Once that you have made some affordable art merchandise and you've sold some things and you realize that my art is actually something that people enjoy and people want, conventions and art fairs can be your best friend if you have some good art merchandise. You pay your little table fee at this art fair or this Comic-Con or whatever. You set up your little booth, and then all weekend long, you can sell your art merchandise to people who are just coming by. I used to do Emerald City Comic-Con in Seattle. It was like a 4-day event, and we could easily make $40,000 in the weekend.
Yeah, got to stop and pause and be like, whoa, wait a minute. You'd make $40,000 in one weekend. Oh, that's pretty good, isn't it? uh, yeah, I mean that's like the high end that I've heard artists making at these sort of events. It's not the first time I've heard people talk about $40,000. In fact, maybe $35,000 was the record. There's an artist, what's his name? Jed Henry. He does sort of Japanese woodblock inspired anime and game fan art prints. And I heard on the artistic grapevine that this particular artist makes about $35,000 at an art show or about that. And yeah, to make 40,000, that's crazy. I wonder as well how many of those come from this guy's YouTube channel. So yeah, 1,000. He's got he's on his way to 1 million subscribers, so he's pretty well known. Sort of, like I'm sure if he said at the end of a video, "Come to Emerald City Comic Con in Seattle. I'm going to be selling my my artwork or my T-shirts." He's probably going to get 1,000 people turn up that would be going to maybe going to that event anyway, but that would make an effort to stop by and say hello and maybe buy a tea or some artwork or something. So yeah, that's crazy money. I mean, I'll admit the most money I've made at a comic convention has been. I mean, I don't know what the gross amount. I normally just go by the net profit because that's more useful to see how much money I actually earned after all my expenses and stuff. But I think the gross amount I'd earned was probably closer to $4,000, like 10% of what he made, and that was like my best ever one. Normally they're far less; they're closer to like $1,000 per show. So yeah, that's crazy money. So yeah, sad reality is the good old demand and supply. I can't believe that there are people making a fortune with prints. Well, there are definitely people making a fortune with prints. I just don't know how many are making that kind of money. Yeah, I mean it's so hard to quantify it, but I would imagine that it's going to be the 1%ers, as I call them, at the very top of the food chain that are making that kind of money. A comic show. Let's just say it's a big show. It's got 500 artists or artisan type tables, people selling things. There's going to be maybe like 1%, maybe five of those at 5 of the 500 that are going to make tens of thousands of dollars, like 20, 30,000, $40,000. But the others are going to make maybe significantly less. Maybe like there'll be the top 100 at that show out of the 500 that are making maybe $10,000, and then the other sort of 400 are sort of $1,000 or less, that kind of thing. It's kind of like all the spoils basically go up to the sort of top of that sort of pyramid. So yeah, sorry. The mythical illusory. I created a way to have a comfortable life with art. Yeah, well, that's right. I mean, he's sort of managed to do it. I mean, this guy as well. Like, honestly, he must be making so much money. A couple of things I know about him is that he has this T-shirt subscription business. Again, I haven't watched many of his videos, but I know enough to know a few little factoids. So this 1000, he has a t-shirt subscription business whereby he has, well, as far as I know, thousands of people that every month get a new t-shirt that he makes sent directly to him. And the subscription model, business model, is probably one of the best things you could do, because you basically lock in repeat custom, like with Patreon. But you're actually offering a tangible product, so that they're less likely to just offer you money for goodwill. They're going to actually offer you money and get a product at the same time. So he must make a lot of money with his t-shirt business. Plus, he did a Kickstarter campaign where he designed some playing cards. So, regular playing cards, what is it, 52 or 56 cards in a deck, something like that. And they weren't fantastic, amazing, highly detailed designs, but I think he made, I want to say maybe 1.2 or 1.4 million dollars in his Kickstarter campaign doing that, which was insane. It just goes to show what you can make if you've got like 850,000 YouTube subscribers, and off the back of that kind of thing. It's silly money. Well, I think most of us would say, like, can we just have 1% of that and we'll be quite happy. And then Phil, yeah, hello, I'm lucky if I make 800 a weekend at a con. Yeah, well, I think that's far more typical and reasonable, and 800's pretty good. I wrote an article on my website about my first 10 Comic Con experiences, and I didn't really know what I was doing. I kind of just had some artwork that I'd already drawn, and I just turned a few into sort of art prints, brought them along. I wanted to see if I could sell them. I'd never been to shows before. I didn't really understand what to sell or how to sell it, stuff like that. Anyway, long story short, 10 conventions later, and I'd sold, well, how much money did I make? I think I made minus £500, so about minus sort of $600, $700. So yeah, 10 shows, all that effort to, make the prints and to, attend the shows. And obviously, if you do events yourself, you'll know that it can be pretty tiring. And I guess if you're a character artist, you're probably caricaturing, if that's the word, people all day. So it's it's a lot of work. It's a lot of energy that goes into it. So it was tough when I actually ran the numbers, and I was like, I can't believe this. I've lost so much. I've worked so hard just to have a minus negative bank balance. It was crazy. But because I'm stupid and stubborn, I didn't give up, and then I ended up figuring out how to actually make money at these shows. So I guess that can be quite inspirational, so far as, like, yeah, it can really suck. Not only are you not making any money, you could be losing money, but then, there's ways to turn it around, I guess. But it just takes a bit of time. So yeah, Reaper says, I'm not going to lie, I'm a simple Brazilian, but I'm tired of hearing people talking about how they managed to make 50k without any problems. Well, yeah, that's the trouble. If you're living in Brazil, then you're not going to have access to the American comic convention scene. I don't know what the Brazilian comic convention scene is like. If you did want to exhibit artwork there, I'm not so sure what sort of artwork you produce. It doesn't have to be comic book characters, or you can just create a range of products that would fit into a market there. But I mean, what's the sort of general costs of living in Brazil? Because I'd imagine that even though you might not have literal access, sort of so far as your location goes, to like the American market, you could probably still sell to America and benefit insofar as the fact that you wouldn't need to spend. I don't know what it would cost for a typical American to survive. $25,000 maybe. Would that be enough for an American to have a small apartment somewhere outside of a big city and survive with just an internet connection and eating noodles or living very cheaply? I would say as a bare minimum here in the UK, yeah, that's about 20. 25 to 30,000 pounds. So yeah, $30,000 to $35,000 is probably like a bare minimum that you would need to survive. But yeah, there was this. Where was he from? He was somewhere in South America. It might have been. Oh, it could have been Brazil or Mexico. I mean, or was it like Argentina? I can't remember. But there was an artist that I did know that had like a business whereby he would he would create his artwork and then he would drop ship it from an American print supplier. So basically, he would he would get a customer that lived in America order his art prints, and then he would basically get an American print company to first print the artwork and then send it to the customer, sort of on his behalf. So he didn't need to live in the US in order to still sell to US customers, and that's what I do as well. I drop ship some of my artwork directly to Americans via American companies, even though I'm based in the UK. Um, so I want to believe, but this whole conversation makes me feel like an incompetent idiot. I don't think so. I think we're just learning here, aren't we? Unacceptable. We have to learn to make money. Well, yeah, we do, and I think we're all going to have to find our own sort of way to do that. Okay, website stopped buffering. It looked like it cut out for a second there. So yeah, so Phil, you're in Toronto. Okay, so it's good that you have conventions where you are, and obviously you've got access, I'd imagine, to the American scene as well. So you kind of got the best of both worlds, if you want. I mean, for me, I've kind of got access to the other European countries. I think France and Germany tend to do quite big shows. Obviously, you then have the language barrier. It's not quite as easy, I guess, but yeah, tables are getting really expensive now. I think some people, through virtue of the fact of them talking about their experiences, some people are are learning that artists can make a lot of money at these shows. And if 1000 comes online and talks about his $40,000 of revenue, they're making it a show, then perhaps the comic convention committee that run these shows will basically say, "Oh well, if we know that these guys are making $40,000 a go, let's start charging them even more money." So maybe it's not such a good idea finding out these huge sums. Um, so yeah, sort of with things the way they are right now, I refuse to go to the US. Okay. So what is the issue? I mean, other than the sort of state of the political thing. Yeah, well, I do get it just on those grounds, but I think just from a sort of monetary point of view, uh, like, could you just go there, do the show, get the money, get straight back out of there? Um, yeah, I could appreciate you not wanting to do that. That's fair enough.
Just off of selling art t-shirts, art prints, and other art merchandise that I made. It's like tons of customers coming straight to you instead of you trying to market online or however else you sell this stuff. Conventions, that's the little secret. Number 4, I think this can apply to literally every artist. Maybe some of my tips are a little bit more specific to me, but this one I think can really just apply to everybody. And that is, it's okay to feel like you suck. It's okay to have art block. It's okay to like literally start hating making the art that you're making. It happens to me. It happens to every other artist that I've ever talked to. It's almost like clockwork on every single project that I do, that I'm gonna start feeling inadequate, not want to make the art, feeling like I'm stuck, feeling like I have no good ideas. But as you make more and more art, and as you overcome these feelings more and more often, you start realizing over time that this is like actually part of the process, and you start developing tools to overcome these type of feelings. It's like the more times you fail, the more lessons you learn from it, and the easier it becomes to not fall into those same traps and those same like mental processes. It's a job being an artist. Nobody likes their job all the time. Sometimes you just have to like figuratively just like punch the clock, sit down, do the work, hate it for a little bit, struggle for a little bit, but keep pushing it. You're gonna come out the other side knowing how to handle those feelings a little tiny bit better for the next time. My 5th tip, the iPad Pro. Dude, this device is a total game changer for me. I used to do all of my concept sketches and all of my first beginning art with just like pencils and pens on paper. Getting the iPad Pro really helped me level up my productivity. The Apple Pencil 2 is just straight up God tier. I slapped the paper-like screen protector on here so that instead of drawing on like glossy, weird feeling glass, it feels like a piece of paper. Being able to manipulate your drawings, stretch and skew and copy and paste and erasing, dude. When you draw with a pencil on a piece of paper, if you erase it, no matter how hard you try, there's still always just the tiniest, faintest little remnant of what you did wrong. But this actually literally completely erases it. Being able to work in vector, in raster, all kinds of cool effects. It really helps speed up my ability to create. Everything like just works really freaking good on this thing. If you haven't tried one of these out, to me, it's one of the best art tools, period. God tier.
Okay. I actually haven't used an Apple iPad for drawing, which sounds really weird. Like I feel like I should do. I feel almost guilty for saying that. But yeah, I tend to just use a regular. I've got a big Cintiq graphics tablet. I tend to just work on that. But so many people say, well, the portability of having, a pad that you can actually, bring around and draw on. And I would like to get opinions if anyone's used them just to know what it's like. But yeah. Oh, okay. I didn't realise there was an actual threat of danger sort of crossing the Canadian border. Okay, that's not good. I mean, I don't really know too much about what's going on. All I know is that there's issues with the state of American politics and the knock-on effects with Canadians right now. Um, Feel free to fill me in. However, I'd love to do a con in the UK. I think that would be a blast. Yeah, well, if you ever do, just like send me a message. I can tell you the best ones to get into, what the sign up process for those kind of things is, that sort of thing. I mean, there's a lots of little conventions here in the UK whereby you could do a comic convention probably every 2 weeks, maybe, if you really wanted to. But some of them are so small, they're the small little like town hall with like 20 tables type of thing, very low key, very low footfall, just the local villagers basically going to the show. You'll get maybe a couple of hundred people sort of through the door, very low footfall. And then you've got that all the way up to like the main one that I tend to do, which is the MCM Comic Con. I think they also do the Emerald City show that was mentioned in the previous one. I think they do New York Comic Con and Emerald City as well in the States. But yeah, here in the UK they do 2 in London, one in May, one in October, and one in Birmingham, which is quite a big city here in the UK. They just do one of those in November. And they're the bigger ones. They're the ones where I'm more likely to make like 4-figure sums tabling at those shows. The trouble is, unfortunately, this year, because they vet the applications before they come in, before they award table space, and this year I wasn't awarded any table space. So even though this year would have been a really good year to go, and yeah, I wasn't given the opportunity to exhibit there. I wasn't given the table space, which is the first time in 40 something shows that I've not been allowed to exhibit. At that particular MCM, I've probably done about 15 of the MCM shows, and yeah, I've always managed to get a table. So far as I know, they have about 1,000, is it 1,000, 1,500 artists apply every year, and they tend to have about 300 to 350 tables. So that you've got to be in the top, I don't know, 20%, for example, in order to get a table. So the majority won't get a table, they won't get table space. But yeah, it's weird when you've always had that opportunity. So annoyingly for me, I didn't get into one of the main shows that I wanted to get into this year. And the Birmingham one that I mentioned, or Birmingham, as those in the States and maybe in Canada like to say as well. I didn't get into that one as well. There was just no advertisements for it. I'm on an email list where they would normally say to me, oh, if you'd like to apply, now is the time. Applications are going to be open for the next couple of months. And they never did it. They never contacted me to say that the event was even going ahead. So I was waiting for the sort of the call for action so that I could apply, and it never came into my inbox. I don't know if that was something to do with being struck off the record for not getting into the first show, and maybe they didn't want to allow me the opportunity to get into this Birmingham one as well. So I don't know what happened there. So the two main shows I hope to get into this year, I didn't end up getting to do. So I'm thousands of pounds down for this year's income, which is very worrying, because you sort of partly rely on it to be able to sort of pay the bills and stuff. But anyway, that's my comic convention story. So we have a bunch of those little ones too. The small ones don't get much traffic though. Yeah. So how many shows have you done, Phil? Are you quite prolific in the convention scene? Because I made the decision that even though I've done like 40 shows, like I would only do at the moment maybe like 3 or 4 of the bigger shows now. Certainly in the UK, I just got the feeling like it wasn't really worth potentially, either breaking even or just slightly over, because like you say, table costs are expensive. Some of these small shows as well that only get, like, they might only get 3 or 4, 5,000 people through the door, and they still want, quite a bit for the table costs. And you just think, having done it so many times, you get to a point where you're like, I know how this is, and as optimistic as I like to be at these shows, I probably will just struggle to break even, and it's just not worth it. Not for me. And then, like I say, there are artists that would do better than me. I get the impression that at comic conventions I'm sort of round about the middle. So if I can make £1,000 at a show, like I kind of feel like that's about average, and I feel like there's maybe 40% beneath me that making less than 1,000, maybe 40% making a bit more than that, up to 2,000. And then like I say, you've got those at the top, the sort of 20% at the top, perhaps, that are making tens of thousands. So I don't think I'm quite at that level. I know I'm not quite at that level yet. So that is the convention thing. Yeah, worth getting into as a potential avenue, I think, for any artist.
S tier, such a sick device. Number 6, focus on your online presence. Build an audience. So freaking important in this day and age. Sharing your work on these amazing social media platforms that we have in our pocket at all times is just like such a sick tool. It allows us to get feedback on our work. It allows us to find the niche audience that appreciates our particular style. You can build a community. When it does come time to release prints or t-shirts or sell artwork or anything like that, you have an audience there of people who are interested in your artwork, and hopefully some of those people will support you not only with likes and comments, but also by maybe purchasing some of your artwork and supporting you financially. It also gives you the ability to practice storytelling, making videos, which is so freaking popular and necessary in this day and age, sharing the full story of who you are as an artist. That's how I've been able to connect most effectively with my online audience, is giving them a little bit of a story of who I am. Building an audience, building your social media presence is incredibly important. Now, I got a few more tips for you guys, but before we jump into that, I got to give you a super excellent tip, and that's to share your art on a beautiful website. That's why I am so happy that today's video is sponsored by Square.
I'm going to say Squarespace. There was 3 main ones I used to do, but 2 of them too much money for tables. But none of them Anime North. Oh, sorry, but one of them Anime North. I know the organisers have a deal with them, done that for 15 years. Oh, okay, so 15 years. So, yeah, you've been in the art game a while then. Okay, yeah, that's good that at least you've kind of got those ones. You sort of narrowed it down. Like you say, if you're making, a few $100s, and if that's, Canadian dollars, obviously that's less than a US dollar is worth. I think still. Then yeah, you're going to have to be quite selective, aren't you, about the sort of the types of shows that you're going to want to do. Yeah, so
Squarespace. Squarespace is a website where you can build your own. They have amazing features for artists, creative. Back to it. Art tip number 7, become a member of a community. As artists, we live a pretty solitary lifestyle. We're usually alone in our bedroom or our art studio. There's not a lot of other person-to-person interaction. That could be a bit of a lonely existence. Finding other creative people, other like-minded individuals that you can be a part of a community with is gonna help you continue to be inspired, to keep creating. Maybe the closest big city has an art scene that you can be a part of. If you aren't able to do that, there's, Discord servers and Facebook groups and online communities. There's the comment section of this freaking YouTube video. If you're out there at every single art opening that your local gallery has, you're gonna become a recognizable face to these curators. You can show them your artwork. You can express how interested you are in maybe being a part of their gallery show. There's a short list of artists that these people know, and when they think of you as one of those artists, you're gonna start having other opportunities. Maybe there's a mural festival a couple towns over, and you go every year and you talk to the people who curate this mural festival. You meet all the artists. Not only are you getting like super cool inspiration from seeing this world-class mural art, but you're becoming a part of the community, and maybe you volunteer at one of them. Maybe you just get an opportunity to congratulate the curator on another awesome festival this year, express how much you would love to be involved in any way in the future, show them some of the art that you're doing. Doing stuff like that is gonna lead to gigs somewhere down the road. At least that's how it worked for me. Definitely go into it with an attitude of...
So yeah, that whole sort of personal involvement being, like it's like the whole anime north thing. Sort of once you've sort of got some sort of relationship with the vendors and the exhibit, not the vendors, but the organisers, then you can sort of come back year. But yeah, it's it's a lot of who you know, I think, with these types of things. And I suppose you get to a point after you've been doing things for a while and you sort of start to get yourself seen where it's worth then basically saying, I'm here, I'm ready to work with you, I'm looking for opportunity, making yourself known, I guess.
This is cool and I want to support this and I would love to be a part of this, versus I'm the best, why am I not included? If you go in there with a super cocky attitude and you just think like, oh, I'm the shit, and like you're an idiot for not having me be a part of this, that's not going to be very beneficial to you or anybody. So yeah, being a part of a community is going to help inspire you, help you connect with other people who do similar things to you, hopefully help you get gigs, and it feels good to be a part of something cool. My last tip, number 8, super important, keep practicing, keep learning. The more you make art, the more often that you're actually working on your craft, the better and better you're gonna get. And even like secondary skills, like if you're an artist in this day and age, knowing how to take a decent photograph of your artwork is crazy important. Knowing how to make a little video about the creation process of your art is super important. Learn about cameras, learn about lighting, learn about all these subsequent skills that revolve and orbit around your art. Never stop learning, never ever stop practicing. If you look at my art from 5 years ago, garbage. 3 years ago, in my opinion, garbage. 1 year ago, little iffy. Even between 6 months ago, the stuff I was making and the stuff that I made last week, I think there's a massive difference in the quality of what I'm able to do. That's because I'm continuing to create all the time, and I'm continuing to try to learn new skills and keep practicing. A lot of times we want to put the cart in front of the horse and just be like, I need all the Instagram followers in the world. I'm dope. All my videos need 1 million views. And it's like, dude, you need to practice more. If you don't have good stuff to begin with, if you don't have art that's interesting or unique or technically good or just creative in some way, all these other tips are pretty much worthless. Keep practicing, keep making art. No matter how good you are, you could be better. No matter how much you know, you could learn more. And if you just are hungry for knowledge throughout your entire art career, you're just gonna excel and excel and excel because you're always building off of what you've already done and moving forward. Those are my 8 tips.
Oh, there you go. I mean, that last one, I'm intrigued by that because I feel like everything you said, good advice. Always, the art is good. If it's not, then you can you can't polish a turd, as they say. But at the same time, I feel like there's going to be, like I've said before, these top 1%ers, the people that are killing it, that have the holy shit, that's good type of artwork. But perhaps we can't all be in that top 1%. But what does that mean for the 99% of the rest of us? Like where can we find a space for ourselves? And I don't necessarily want to say that I'll never be part of the 1%, or it's not. I'm not being self-deprecating because I'm just being depressed or something. It's just being realistic and saying, okay, well, I think there's a lot of artists who they obviously aren't the best in the world, and perhaps they in some ways would never be technically the best, but does it mean that therefore they should give up their dreams of being a professional artist? Or is there not another route to victory for them? Maybe they can make really good videos and express their personality, and that could be the gateway to getting the sales. And they'll have to deal with the negative side of that, where more accomplished artists will say, oh well, I deserve more, I'm a better artist. And it's like, well, yeah, I'm not disputing that, but you're also not as good at connecting with other human beings, either online or in real life, or you perhaps, there's so many other ways that you could potentially elevate what you're doing above and beyond just technical prowess. And I think that should be something worth looking into. And there's obviously evidence of people who are complete non-artists that happen to have big platforms, like movie stars who are known for being actors or actresses, and then they become artists and go on to sell pretty well as artists. Would they go on to sell as good if they weren't famous? Doubtful. Some of their artwork is amateurish at best, but it doesn't matter. They found another route to victory. So I feel like there are other avenues, and they shouldn't be completely discounted. And the idea of just getting good at art in isolation isn't perhaps the only answer. That's all I'd say to that point. So yeah, by the way, I have heavy British roots, so I pronounce all cities, etc., the same as you. I'm not as an Americanized. Lol. So what was it? Parents British or grandparents, perhaps? But yeah, okay. So would you say Birmingham or Birmingham? And would you say Yorkshire or Yorkshire, which is a more American sort of Canadian-ish accent? Just curious. But yeah, okay. So 1000's 8 secrets that supercharges art career. Clickbaity title. I mean, it's not really a secret to get good at art, and that will help you sell art. But you got to do it. You got to play the game. Don't blame him. Yeah, I think all these artists, was it free today? They all had something worth saying, and like I say, I think it's worth checking in with people just to see what people are saying, and to see if there's overlap, and to see if there's any little nuggets of wisdom that can be extracted from people, because they're here. Or we'll give them a view, we'll give them an extra boost in the algorithm for it, and if we get a little bit of information in return, that's all good. So let's see what last.
From my art career that I've learned throughout my process, hope somebody got something out of this video. Maybe some of the tips weren't for you, but maybe you got just one little gem out of this. Maybe the whole thing was super interesting to you. I appreciate you guys watching. I'm 1000. Thank you to my patrons. If you like this video, leave a like. Catch you guys on the next one. Peace out. Thank you guys. Bye.
Those are not patrons. I always think, imagine, that's each one of them represents, say, $5 or $10, reoccurring. How long does this list go on for? that is just going to go on for ages. Yeah, yeah, Guy's doing well. I'm kind of glad as well that we have. Uh, I say we, but like he does sort of more. How would you describe it? Sort of a semi-abstract comic book style illustrative art, and it's quite good to see that rather than like a contemporary sort of painting of a horse or landscape or something, the kind of thing that you'd normally see in an art gallery. I like seeing things that are just a little bit different. But maybe that's because I grew up as a kid sort of liking animation and uh, comics, graffiti, stuff like that. But yeah, okay. Well, I'm going to leave it there for tonight. Thanks for sticking around. Thanks for the chat. I do appreciate the comments and stuff. And it's all good practice for me, just sort of being in front of the camera, trying to think of things worth talking about, and to sort of think, okay, is there anything here which is worth saying, which isn't worth saying? And well, I can only give my take on these kind of things, and I just think it's interesting. So I'm here just to hopefully learn, and if we can learn a few things together, it's all good. So, like I say, I will leave it there. I'll see you again next time. Thanks again.